The overwhelming share of that violence came from left-wing extremists. Between 1970 and 1980, 93% of terrorist attacks in the West came from the far extremist left. These are numbers that would shock most Americans today because we've been taught to believe that this kind of political violence, it simply doesn't exist or it's being exaggerated. But it does exist, and we're actually underestimating it. And our nations bear the scars to prove it. And today we face a new wave of this old evil. Here in the United States, the share of left-wing terrorist attacks and plots has risen to levels not seen in decades. In Germany, far-left violence has jumped by more than 40% in just the last year alone. In Greece, more than 80% of radical violence is now driven by far-left and anarchist actors. These are not abstract statistics. Americans have seen what those numbers mean. An all-out assault on our immigration officers, sniper attacks, explosives, armed ambushes, a transgender shooter opening fire on Catholic elementary school students as they pray, his gun marked with slogans like, "Where is your God now?" A healthcare executive executed in cold blood in the streets. Multiple assassination attempts on a sitting president, and the murder of the greatest conservative activist of a generation, a man who happened to also be a husband and the father of 2 young children, shot and killed while speaking to a crowd of students. This is a distinctive and unique evil. It has always been driven by a hatred, above all else, a hatred for civilization itself. It is a revolt of the worst against the best, a revolt of the weak and the cowardly against the strong and the good.
And the leftist justifies this violence to himself by saying that they alone are the arbiters of what is right or wrong. Not the law, not history, not civilization, not public opinion, and certainly not God. The leftist assumes for himself judge, jury, executioner. But let's not pretend for a moment that these radical leftists, these terrorists, are operating from a place of sincere political conviction. Sure, there are plenty of useful idiots that they use who may believe these discredited ideologies. The leftist is fundamentally motivated by envy, by hatred, by jealousy. The leftist looks at what is beautiful and what is good and what is natural and is filled with envy and hatred. The leftist looks at a perfect family with a perfect life and a perfect job and perfect kids that goes to church every Sunday and is filled with a feeling of inadequacy and jealousy, and they covet, and they turn those emotions ultimately into a desire to subjugate, to oppress, and to inflict pain and suffering. It's not a coincidence that when you look at these violent Antifa demonstrations, you see any photograph of those who were assembled. To be blunt, not one of the people that is demonstrating looks like a normal person. Not one looks normal. They're all deformed in some way in their appearance, in their dress, in their mannerism. Why is that? Why, if you look at 2 photographs and you see a normal American street, you see an Antifa protest, why do the people that are violently demonstrating, why is there not one normal-looking person among them? Every one of them, through the course of their life and their decisions, has scarred their body and their appearance in many different ways, to the point in which their outer appearance becomes a manifestation of their inner hatred. Trust your instincts. To all people and across all civilizations, you know what normal is. You know what beautiful is. You know what good is. You know that families are right. You know that children are precious and beautiful and must be protected. You know that the criminal and the junkie and the predator is a threat to normal, healthy living. This is so much deeper than issues about taxation and regulation, although they're incredibly important. It's about normal, healthy, ordered living.
Donald was the young man who was going to conquer Manhattan.
He takes chances that would make a less daring man shudder.
To think about the arc of where he's been, it's like some sort of mythical story or something.
This sounds like political presidential talk to me. Donald Trump seems to always get stronger when challenged.
My God, that guy's got resilience.
Those who deal with you underestimate you and live to regret it. It's always good to be underestimated. It is not about politics. It's about our love for this great country, America, and we're not going to let it fail. I will fight like no one has ever fought before.
Trump is the bodyguard of Western civilization.
You want to talk about a fighter, a walked in fire? He's an absolute savage.
He knows that this is much bigger than him. This is about the American people. They have no idea what they have unleashed. He was ready to go face the cameras and come out swinging.
What will future Americans say we did in our brief time here on Earth? It will be defined by your vision, your perseverance, and your grit. Nothing will sway us, nothing will slow us, and no one will ever stop us. We are Americans. Ambition is our heritage. Greatness is our birthright. And the future belongs to us.
Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you listened intently to the words that President Trump said as he posted that video yesterday, I believe. Because what he just said at the end, different than the moniker of no one can stop what is coming. He said, no one is going to stop us. Pretty much the same thing. I feel I'm giddy. And I hope I don't get a pair of socks today for Christmas. Actually, no, I feel like Christmas comes tonight, and this is the prelude. This is, Thanksgiving. And if any of you guys ever, well, I'm sure every single one of you from the time you were like this high have fond memories of Thanksgiving. Because from the time we woke up, we started smelling things that Mom was cooking. And then all of a sudden, other ladies showed up, aunts, cousins, maybe even some neighbors, and they all brought something to the table. They all brought something to the table, but we couldn't touch it yet. Man, this smells awesome. Nope, get out there, go back out there, watch television. Get outside and go play. I can't. Smells so good. It's right there. Is it ready? Nope. Not ready. How can it not be ready and be right there in front of us? How can we not be ready to just gnaw the meat and we eat the potatoes and dig in and rub our face in the sweet potatoes? If you're black, that's what we had. How is it not ready? And then other people would show up. Other friends and family and close people would show up. Now is it time? Nope. Go sit down and watch the football game. Come on. It's not ready yet? Nope. Not ready. And we'd sit out there with the guys, and, as you got older, you get to talk, and you get to maybe hold the remote. There was no remote. It was some other kid at that time would turn the channel on to the Cowboys or the Detroit Lions or the Packers. Those are basically the only teams that played. And we would just sit there and wait, and we'd hear the women in the kitchen laughing, almost like it was torture. Let's see how far we can drive these people crazy. Smell. Here's some more for you. And then finally, I don't know if it's on cue. I don't know if they just learned a certain kind of torturing device. Is it waterboarding for Thanksgiving or something? But eventually one of the ladies would say, it's time. And all of a sudden, the eagerness of sitting down at the table and making a nice big plate of something and passing it on because it was time. Well, I could be making a lot out of nothing. I don't know what's going to happen tonight. But ladies and gents, I think it's time. I think it is time to eat. I think it is time for us all together and enjoy the feast that is to come. And then later on tonight, we're going to fast forward like it's a couple of weeks. Later on tonight will be Christmas. And all of us will be coming down the stairs and looking at all the stuff under the tree, hoping to break it open and find our ultimate prize, our ultimate desire. Every single one of us is hoping tonight it won't be socks or underwear. We hope it's a big old box, ribbon on it, of Democrats. But let's go back to right now. Let's take it back to Thanksgiving. We're all sitting at the table. And I think today, I see the news and they're talking about the socialism and they're talking about the Iranian war, but I don't think that's the story today. What I think the table setting was today were the three wise men came out and made speeches. I don't know if you've seen it today. The three wise men came out and they didn't bring frankincense and myrrh. They brought the goods. You see, the three wise men that came out today were Marco Rubio, Stephen Miller, and Scott Bessent. And just stay with my whole Christmas season, holiday season analogy here, because there's a reason why they came out today and said what they said today, right before Ms. Leavitt has her press conference, and then early before we go to Christmas tonight with President Trump. This entire analogy, I sat back and it came to me as I was watching these speeches. And I was just completely amazed to see that these guys were stepping out and saying this stuff today. You got a little snippet there of Marco Rubio, and you got a little bit of Stephen Miller telling you what they're going after. They're going after the foot soldiers. They're going after the bad guys. They're going after the Democrat apparatchiks, the people who have been causing all the problems. The orcs are now set in their sight. Why are they doing that? Because I believe whatever is going to happen tonight, they need to cut these people off before they start their shenanigans. And so today, hours and hours before President Trump comes down the chimney, he made sure it's safe to do so. He put them all on notice, every single one of them. But you are now on notice. That global terror network called Antifa. And I believe this is made because it is the plate setting. You know, Mom had the plate setting and the napkins and everything else was sit just perfectly. Because I think that table setting is for the Insurrection Act. I think it's for possibly declaring a national emergency. It's upon us. It's here. It is time. Now, tomorrow morning, you guys may wake up and say, Barry, that was a whole lot of nothing. Well, it is whatever he wants to make it. None of us are on the inside the Oval Office. None of us are in the inner circle. All we can do is look. All we can do is look at what's being served to us. You know, when you're younger, that smell, you didn't realize what it was until after you've consumed it and you realize that was some damn good turkey and mashed potatoes and biscuits. You learned what that was. We don't know today what's being served up. We have an idea. We smell it. And then tonight, when we get to go downstairs and open the presents, we don't know what's in the boxes. I'm so hoping it's the Insurrection Act. I am so hoping it's a national emergency. But it might not be this Christmas that we get that. But it's going to be something. We know it's going to be something. And so I don't want to set expectations too high, and yet I don't want to set expectations too low. You see, we all know what the big thing is with the bike that we want. We know the bicycle is the number one thing we all want. So if we get the Insurrection Act, if we get the Andrew Jacksonian stuff, if we get national emergency, if we find out that China's been messing with our elections, if we find out we're going to go after Antifa, if we find out that we're going to take Hillary and Obama down, then the bike is here. But we may not get there yet. But in any event, I don't want to hear anybody tonight. Just giving you a forewarning. Check out, don't come, check the news tomorrow. But if you're one of those people who feels nothing is happening, or I've heard it all before, or, enough with that 17th letter stuff, or, nothing's ever going to happen, don't show up. Don't even show up. Beth, Roaring Rage, Severo, SV, those people show up, ban them on site. Don't even want to hear it. Don't even want them in the chat. I want tonight to be for real ones. I want tonight to be for those people who have waited for years to see what may be coming. And at the same time, let's hold each other up to realize it may not be what we want. It may not be the final big thing that stops the Democrats. You have to understand, like I said yesterday or 2 days ago, there's going to be three kinds of people. There's going to be patriots like you who say, bring it, I'm ready. And there are going to be other people who don't know what the hell we're talking about. And there's going to be that third part, which is, I think, what Marco Rubio and Stephen Miller and Scott Bessent took a hold of today, which is those people don't care. They're deformed. They're freaks. They're orcs. They are, as Jack wrote the book, they're subhuman. Nothing is going to change their mind. You cannot change anybody's mind if they're communist. You're not going to change anybody's mind if they believe men can have babies. They're too far gone. Please let me know if you believe a man can have a baby. Then I realize I do not have to have a single word of conversation with you. You are absolutely on the outside. Don't want to know you, don't want to talk to you. And those people who may come in the chat, who may think, oh, nothing's going to happen, I keep hearing it, I'm disappointed, well, go vote for a commie. I don't want you on my team. I don't want anybody in a huddle. Oh, this isn't going to work. This sucks, man. We're getting our butts kicked. Don't need you. Not going to bring us down. The rest of you, put the bibs on. Put your bib on. Understand you may see a reckoning of sort today, and don't be disappointed if it's not. And I'm not waffling on either side of the fence. I fully am welcome to whatever happens today. Whatever happens today. So I'm going to play the three speeches, see how far we get in before she comes on. And if she obviously comes on, we're going to cut right to it. And then we'll finish the three speeches shortly thereafter because they must be heard before tonight. So it'll start with Marco Rubio. And then we'll go into Stephen Miller, and then we'll go into Scott Bessent. And at any time that she comes on, we're going to cut, but do not leave. You have to hear these three speeches. You have to hear the three wise men who came out today because it's that strong. So just a little forewarning. Tonight, we're going to go live. The speech is probably scheduled for 9 o'clock. Just to let you know, we always sit around waiting for President Trump. Not tonight. Whenever there's a broadcast speech, meaning on the big networks, his time has to be exact. So he will not be late. So we will not be late. So at 8:30, we will go live. At 9 p.m., he will be speaking. Almost 9 p.m. on the dot. So don't think it's like a rally where he's just going to show up or take his time. Broadcast speeches have to be completely punctual, and so be ready for that. Don't miss it. 9 o'clock, we'll get into this, whatever time she comes on. Let me cut to SV real quick and see what he's got going. You got anything going on over there?
Hey there, always tons of stuff going on. I just sent you something from Clandestine just a few minutes ago. He's been posting all day with a lot of interesting salacious details.
I had to post today that and tell people that is not my alternative profile because almost the exact wording of something I said, literally like 30 minutes later, he posted something. So we are definitely
GMTA,
on the same.
man. GMTA. Great minds think alike.
Okay.
Sure.
So are you talking about this one? Oh, what the heck just happened? What just happened? Oh my God. Are my buttons working? Buttons working for some reason.
You got me. I'm here.
You're there. Okay, so
I could just read it if you can't bring it up. It's no big. It's a short one.
hold on. Yeah, go ahead. Read it.
Okay, so this is from Clandestine 13 minutes ago. And so it begins. Trump and his administration are now confronting Antifa and a global network of left-wing terror organizations that serve as deep state brown shirts using violence to destabilize free societies. The storm approaches, period.
That's pretty much what I was saying. That's pretty much dead on. He started with "so it begins." Mine was it's time. It is absolutely time. I don't know. Have you heard these three speeches today, SB?
I caught a little bit of a few of them because I've been scouring for news. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff coming. And we have to because we're countering their bullshit, right? Excuse my French.
Aptly. And I'll get this link fixed. I'm not sure why it didn't show up, but while she's talking, I'll get that fixed. So let me go ahead and jump SB because I want to get I want to see if I can get Rubio's speech in before.
All right. Busy day.
Before she jumps in. All right. So I'm not sure why SB's button didn't work. I don't know how that got corrupted. Probably my fault. Probably something I did specifically. But in any event, want to talk to you guys real quick about one of our sponsors today, and that would be Lear Capital. Lear, as you know, is someplace that I've been doing business with myself. But let me tell you about Lear Capital. If you find it hard to really understand what's going on in the economy, to understand all of the technical information regarding the economy and the markets, it's not your fault. More than likely, no one took the time to educate you on the difference between a bond or a stock or never mind gold and or silver. But now you don't have to feel like that. My friends at Lear will help you learn about gold and silver at your pace before you jump into making a purchase. They are making it completely easy for you to make an educated and informed decision about gold and silver. Now, all you have to do is text a code. You don't even have to call. You don't have to go to a link. You just pick up your phone and text the code Barry to 43343. Barry to 43343. From there, you'll be immediately put into Lear's call queue. One of the sales guys will reach out to you directly and talk to you. You don't have to buy anything. And you'll also, and this is probably more important, you're going to get an immediate text. And in that text message, they'll have a link to a landing page where you can sign up to receive a free investor kit or some sort of one of the guides that they have. Once you fill out the form, the investor kit will be emailed to you immediately. So now learning about gold and silver is extremely convenient and easy. Just text the code Barry to 43343. All right, we'll be right back.
One man is being victimized by our own government. One man whom they fear, yet who millions love. One man who is willing to take the poison arrows of lawfare. One man whose voice has been taken away by a corrupt judge operating in a corrupt system. One man who has been ridiculed and insulted. One man who refused to back down. One man who refused to back down. One man who refused to back down. One man who stands between us and them. One man that wants to see America protected again. One man who wants to see America prosper again. One man who understands that a man is a man and a woman is a woman. One man who understands and protects the blessing of life. One man who wants to restore American exceptionalism. One man who once again wants to make America that shining city on a hill for all to see. A place where all the people of the world glowingly set their eyes upon. America. One man who unashamedly wants to make America great again. That one man is Donald Trump.
is Fanfare with Barry Cunningham.
Members of the President's team and cabinet that are here today, our FBI Director Kash Patel, who's here with us, thank you. Our Secretary of Education, Linda McMahon, has joined us as well. You'll hear shortly from Stephen Miller, the President's Deputy Chief of Staff and one of his top advisors on Homeland Security issues as well. And of course, our Secretary of Treasury, Scott Bessent, is here. But again, I want to thank all of you that are here today. I want to thank the whole team here at the State Department as well for putting this together. It truly is an unprecedented event on an unprecedented issue, moment, I should say, in our history. So let me start by saying that the most essential duty of the state, the first responsibility, frankly, of any government of any kind, is the protection of its people. It's the protection of its country. This is a sacred obligation that should transcend all political and all ideological divisions. It is why, for example, we have militaries. It's why we have intelligence agencies. It's why counterterrorism bureaus exist, why police forces exist. Keeping our people safe is the reason why every country represented here has all of these things. We are all very well acquainted, as of now, of course by now, with what has been described as traditional terrorist threats. For 25 years, the term counterterrorism, at least in the West, has meant first and foremost the fight against radical Islamist extremism. And there's a very poignant reason for that. On the 11th of September, in the year of 2001, 19 men murdered 3,000 people here in my country. Then that same enemy struck Europe, murdering nearly 200 commuters aboard trains in Madrid in 2004 and 52 more aboard London buses and the underground in the following year. The entire architecture of Western counterterrorism was rebuilt from the studs around this singular traumatic event. That made sense at the time. Our job was to keep our people safe, and the realm of terrorism, the specter of global jihad, was the premier threat to their safety. And so we went to work, and we assembled a global coalition, working with many of the friends that are represented here in this room today, and we destroyed the ISIS caliphate, we killed al-Baghdadi and al-Zawahiri and bin Laden, and we built intelligence and law enforcement systems capable of anticipating and stopping attacks before the public even hears about them. Every country represented here today has disrupted a terrorist threat at some point emanating from this source. Jihadist attacks and plots in the United States are down by 2/3 since ISIS's peak. The number of people killed by jihadist terrorism in Europe dropped by roughly 97% from the year 2015 to the year 2024. In other words, to a very great extent, our counterterrorism strategy has worked. The threat has not disappeared, of course. It will continue to exist, particularly so long as we tolerate immigration systems that imports these threats directly into our respective homelands. But this threat has been severely diminished. The world looks very different today because of it. For far too long, however, our counterterrorism doctrine has had a blind spot when it comes to extremist violence from the political left. Even today, the very idea that far-left terrorism could be a serious threat is treated as a right-wing fever dream, or worse, as a dangerous fascist conspiracy. It's treated this way by many in the press, by many in academia and our universities, and by many of our legacy institutions. You will no doubt see the dogma rear its head in the coverage of this very conference. In spite of the clear and the undeniable reality, in spite of the objective numbers and statistics, in spite of the fact that in this room today, there are representatives from across the political spectrum, we will hear that this kind of organized violence and terror will be dismissed. It will be dismissed as a partisan fiction. A whole industry grew up in our countries around the study of extremism. We have think tanks and fellowships and journals and consultancies with the unspoken understanding among them that the only kind of political violence that was a true threat to our system, that only one kind of political violence was a true threat to the system. A bomb planted by a neo-Nazi group was a nefarious and murderous act of evil. It is. But a bomb planted by a Marxist revolutionary, well, that's just merely a tragic excess of idealism. Perhaps its means were misplaced or overzealous, but its ends were virtuous and just. That's the implication of how they treated. For years, this extraordinary ideological prejudice was embedded in the way we talked about political violence and extremism. It was repeated again and again until it was accepted as the neutral and objective baseline, so entrenched in the mainstream conventional wisdom that it came to be regarded as an apolitical fact. It is the reason why, here in my country, so many people in positions of power have repeatedly dismissed acts of violence and even terrorism as legitimate forms of political expression, so long as they served a left-wing cause. It is why during those so-called George Floyd riots in the summer of 2020, as criminals and extremists burned and looted their way through America's great cities and nearly brought the country to its knees, city governments all across the country simply refused to prosecute the people conducting these acts of violence and terror. It is the reason for the now infamous image, maybe you all recall this, of a news anchor from a very prominent agency, a news anchor standing in a neighborhood consumed in flames. Meanwhile, the chyron on the bottom read that the protests were mostly peaceful. This was something worse than a double standard. Left-wing violence was not just excused, it was treated as sacrosanct, a protected class unto itself. That era has to end. The coalition in this room today includes political leaders and experts and law enforcement officials from more than 60 countries across the world.
See, I felt that was really important for you to hear. He's got a coalition built of international coalition of 60 different countries are going to go after the Antifa and these rioters and protesters. And he specifically just said, it has to end. We have to cut them off. We cannot allow this vermin to fester in this country anymore, actually in the world anymore.
You have come here from a wide range of governments, parties, and political persuasions. Some of your governments and ours disagree publicly. Sometimes we disagree sharply about trade, about energy, about immigration. You did not come here today because you have been persuaded on every single aspect of the American view of the world. You came here. You are here because 2 weeks ago, a 72-year-old woman was burned on over 80% of her body in her own home in Greece, and she died, executed by a firebomb because her daughter dared to stand for office. You are here today because for 5 days this winter, the lights went out in Berlin, the longest blackout in the city since the Second World War, sparked by an attack that left tens of thousands of households without power in the freezing cold and left an 83-year-old woman dead. You are here and you came because a month after that Berlin blackout, a French 23-year-old succumbed to traumatic brain injuries, beaten to death on the streets of Lyon by a group of far-left militant thugs. You are here because your political leaders are being attacked and stabbed and shot in your streets, because your businesses have been bombed, because your railways have been sabotaged, because your police officers have been beaten and burned. You are here because this is real.
This, as you're hearing it, you realize he's building up the momentum for an international coalition to coalesce behind the fact that leftists are evil, that leftists are terrorists. The fact that he's openly calling leftists terrorists, commies, the fact that he's calling them out specifically gives impetus, gives meaning to what President Trump may do tonight or may do in the future in regards to any sort, national emergency or insurrection act. It ends today. It may not stop today in terms of being able to enforce what they need to do, but if you start listening to what they're saying and understanding from a legal perspective what they're talking about, this is doom for the leftist. There's no place that you can hide in the world. If you can't do it there, you definitely can't do it here. And so there's another thing that, we're going to talk about probably tomorrow is the National Emergency Act. If President Trump or when President Trump decides to declare a national emergency, it's lights out for the Democrats. It's lights out for the left. It's lights out for the media. There are only certain things you can even go to court about. Some of the other stuff is completely up to his discretion. So I want to go through what the ramifications of the National Emergency Act are, because that's going to blow you away as well.
And it is getting worse, and it can no longer be denied, and it can no longer be ignored, because it is time to crush this evil forever. The simple fact is, none of this that I've just described is new. Far-left political terrorism is not a recent-day modern novelty. It is not a fiction manufactured by conservative politicians. For most of the modern era, it was in fact the dominant form of political violence. Every one of our friends here from the nations of the Western Hemisphere remember the decades of kidnappings and bombings and assassinations and executions, the violent terror of the Tupamaros, of the Monteseros, of the FARC, of the ELN. You remember the inhuman savagery of Peru's Shining Path, the Maoist fanatics who massacred the peasant villages of Peru, hacking pregnant women and newborn infants to death with axes and machetes. You remember the tens of thousands of Marxist guerrillas trained to kill in Castro's terrorist camps. All of you here from Europe remember. You remember the machine gun massacres of Italy's Red Brigades, which held the 5-time prime minister captive for 55 days before subjecting him to a revolutionary so-called people's trial and executing him in 1978. You remember the Red Army faction's nearly 3-decade campaign of bombings, kidnappings, and assassinations in Germany, murdering dozens and injuring hundreds more. You remember the 17 November organization in Greece, the Marxist extremists that terrorized Athens for more than a quarter century, including, by the way, shooting my country's CIA station chief dead outside of his home, in front of his wife, as they were returning home from a Christmas party. And here in America, we remember. We remember the same reign of deadly terror, justified by the same slogans, motivated by the same wicked ideas.
So as you're listening to this, remember, this was earlier this morning when he rolled this out, when Stephen Miller and Scott Besson talked. So the media has already heard this. They understand where things are going. They understand that this is where the Trump administration is focusing on. Now, watch when we get to the press conference. It'll be a very strong indicator. I don't know for sure if they will or not, but I have a sneaking suspicion, and I want you guys to pay attention. If all of the conversation at this point goes to the Iranian war and they stay away from what Marco Rubio and Stephen Miller and Scott Besson said, and they kind of tap dance around what's going to happen tonight, which I think that's what they're setting up for, they don't want people to hear this. And so I would almost imagine, maybe I could be wrong, we will see very shortly, if the questions are designed to ignore this, if they start talking about Todd Blanche and Kash Patel at hearings and things of that nature, and don't talk about what these three guys said today, or how it relates to tonight, then you'll know the word for the blackout has been given.
We remember the Weather Underground, which bombed the Pentagon, which bombed the State Department, and bombed the Capitol. We remember the Black Liberation Army, which staged armed robberies and executed police officers at point-blank range. We remember the Symbionese Liberation Army, which shot a public school superintendent to death with cyanide-packed hollow point bullets. In one 18-month period between 1971 and 1972, the FBI counted some 2,500 bombings on American soil, a rate of nearly 5 a day. The overwhelming share of that violence came from left-wing extremists. Between 1970 and 1980, 93% of terrorist attacks in the West came from the far extremist left.
See, why are we just finding this out through the State Department and the Secretary of State? Why is the media never talk about 93%? 9 out of 10 terrorist activities are coming from these leftist orcs. They completely ignore it. They pay no attention to it. And now President Trump and the administration are trying to put a major focus on that specifically.
These are numbers that would shock most Americans today because we've been taught to believe that this kind of political violence, it simply doesn't exist or it's being exaggerated. But it does exist, and we're actually underestimating it. And our nations bear the scars to prove it. And today we face a new wave of this old evil. Here in the United States, the share of left-wing terrorist attacks and plots has risen to levels not seen in decades. In Germany, far-left violence has jumped by more than 40% in just the last year alone. In Greece, more than 80% of radical violence is now driven by far-left and anarchist actors. These are not abstract statistics. Americans have seen what those numbers mean. An all-out assault on our immigration officers, sniper attacks, explosives, armed ambushes, a transgender shooter opening fire on Catholic elementary school students as they pray, his gun marked with slogans like, "Where is your God now?" A healthcare executive executed in cold blood in the streets. Multiple assassination attempts on a sitting president, and the murder of the greatest conservative activist of a generation, a man who happened to also be a husband and the father of 2 young children, shot and killed while speaking to a crowd of students. This is a distinctive and unique evil. It has always been driven by a hatred, above all else, a hatred for civilization itself. It is a revolt of the worst against the best, a revolt of the weak and the cowardly against the strong and the good. It is perpetrated by those who cannot build, who cannot create, who cannot achieve great things, and take their revenge upon the world for their own inadequacy by seeking to destroy those who can. This is what radical leftism is. It may wear various different slogans and ideologies across place and time. They can call themselves anti-capitalist or anti-imperialist or communist or anarchist or Marxist, but the fundamental character is always the same. It's always the same. It is a poisonous resentment cloaked in the language of equality and justice and liberation, an overwhelming need to tear down what greater men have built, to wreck what is beautiful and what is right on behalf of people who are only filled with ugliness and have nothing else to offer the world. Through violence and through terror, they once again seek to impose their ugliness on all of us. The old dogma was wrong. The old dogma was wrong. None of this is driven by idealism. It is not utopian. In fact, it is the opposite. One of the criticisms you sometimes hear of communism, for example, is that it sounds good in theory, but it never works in practice. That's actually not true. Communism does not sound good in theory. The world it envisions for all of us is small, flat, gray, leveled of all exception, drained of all that is good and noble in the human soul. The world it envisions is a world without courage, a world without creativity or ambition, a world without heroes or glory or great causes to strive towards, a world without miracles, without myths, without men who rise above the rest to do incredible and extraordinary things. And the world communism envisions is a world without God. For these architects of revolutionary violence, the towering achievement of our civilization, for them, it's an unbearable humiliation, a reminder of what they cannot do, and a reminder of what they cannot be. So they choose instead to destroy. They attack pipelines, they attack railroads, they attack power grids and laboratories, the physical embodied symbols of power and invention and achievement. This is the nature of the terrorism we face today. They despise the West because the West is great. This is an international conference. because we are facing we are facing a transnational threat.
That is the key. This is an international conference because it is a transnational threat. He used the word threat. National emergency. We have an emergency here. These people are a threat internationally. Just remember the words and how they're saying this and how he's laying it out.
These are not distinct and isolated cells. They are interconnected networks. They do not recognize our borders. They do not believe, in fact, in the nation state itself. They coordinate, they communicate, they travel, they train, and they act together, sharing the same infrastructure, sharing the same enemies, sharing the same mission. Antifa militants and their comrades travel from across Europe and to the Americas to participate in each other's attacks, to funnel propaganda and training materials and target information through shared encrypted channels, moving through underground networks of safe houses and finance, and sustain their operations through transnational funds.
All right, so now he's telling you how Scott Bessent fits into all of this, which is really interesting because now he's telling you, well, the network is widespread, their evil is widespread, their damage is widespread. Now he's touching on they're also funded internationally as well, which is another key to bringing them down.
And they work alongside hostile foreign states that share their mission, like Iranian proxy networks, who are increasingly intimately tied to leftist militant groups around the world. The Cuban regime's sprawling intelligence and ideological network helped to build the far left in our country and in our hemisphere, and it remains inextricably linked to the far left groups and movements across and beyond the West. Today's far left terrorists can raise money in one country. They can host their communications in a second country. They can receive training in a third country. They can recruit militants in a fourth country, and then together strike a target in a fifth country. And so we have no choice but to confront this menace together.
Did you hear what he just described? In addition to international terrorism, he basically just described a terrorist nation. A militia of sorts, well-funded, well-organized, international threat to America and threat to your countries as well. They can do all these things simultaneously. Money in country one, training in country two, they can strike. This is all being laid out specifically so that when President Trump does decide how he's going to declare the Insurrection Act or a national emergency, it is specific to the fact of what they're laying out today, which the media won't talk about. The media won't even say the words Antifa. And Marco Rubio, it's very definitive in how he's speaking right now that I think it's real important. I hate interrupting it, but I want you guys to make sure you hear how they're laying out the fact that basically they're going to war. In no uncertain terms, he is declaring war, not on a country, but on a terrorist organization.
We will either cooperate across our borders, or the terrorists will continue to exploit the gaps between them. Under President Trump, for the first time, the United States is building the infrastructure, the partnership, and the strategy to defeat the scourge of far-left terror. The President signed National Security Presidential Memorandum Number 7, outlining a comprehensive strategy to investigate and disrupt Antifa terror networks and their allies. Last November, the State Department designated 4 violent far-left extremist groups as foreign terrorist organizations, and there will be more designations soon. In December, we announced rewards for justice offering up to $10 million for information disrupting the financing behind these groups. In May, we convened the first counterterrorism law enforcement workshop, joining American law enforcement officials and their counterparts in our partner country nations together to map and develop strategies for dismantling these networks. The next workshop will be co-hosted with our partners in Germany. The coalition we're building together is already bearing fruit. And we are here today to build on that work.
All right, she's up.
We can.
Go back to this. Just make sure.
Tonight, as you all know, at 9:00 p.m. Eastern, President Trump will deliver a major address to the nation on protecting the integrity of our elections, and we encourage every American to tune in. On Friday, the president will travel to New York City to attend a FIFA reception at Trump Tower, followed by his attendance on Sunday at the FIFA World Cup between Spain and Argentina. His attendance will cap what has been the most watched, most secure, and most successful World Cup in American history. This is a fitting conclusion to a tournament that showcased America's ability to host the world on the grandest stage. Turning now to the economy. Tuesday's CPI report confirmed what President Trump predicted. Prices are falling, and this administration's economic policies are working. Inflation dropped 0.4% last month, beating expectations and marking the largest monthly decline in more than 6 years. Prices fell, including for gasoline, electricity, non-prescription drugs, car insurance, medical care services, and hotels, delivering relief for American working families. We also saw real weekly earnings rise in the month of June. For private sector workers, real wages have increased by roughly $1,000 since President Trump took office, after falling nearly $3,000 during the previous administration. This is real progress made possible by the president's pro-growth economic agenda. There is still more work to do, no doubt, which is why President Trump remains laser-focused on lowering costs and raising wages for working families across the country. Just last week, Walmart and Sam's Club announced they will be lowering prices on thousands of items in their stores across the country. Shoppers can expect meaningful savings on groceries, household essentials, outdoor living products, toys, apparel, and other everyday staples. As President Trump said, Walmart answered his call and stepped up in a big way, and we commend them for that. We hope other major retailers will follow the lead of this patriotic American company. While we're on the subject of helping working families get ahead, I want to remind everyone that the Trump accounts are now officially live. To date, and this is a new stat from the Council of Economic Advisors this morning, more than 6.5 million American children have been signed up for accounts so far, including my 2 kids, who I signed up during my maternity leave. There are a few things I want to make clear about this massively beneficial program that has the potential to literally transform the financial future of this country. First, any child under the age of 18 is eligible to have a Trump account opened in his or her name. This is a free investment savings account that costs nothing to open. Second, thanks to President Trump, every child born between January 1st, 2025 and December 31st, 2028 will receive a $1,000 seed deposit from the United States Treasury. Third, parents, guardians, relatives, and friends can contribute up to $5,000 per year combined for each child. Employers can also contribute up to $2,500 per year on a tax-favored basis, counting toward the annual cap. The president believes there is no better investment than in America's children. Government projections show that a child whose family maxes out contributions could see the account grow to nearly $300,000 by the time the child turns 18. This is, I think we can all agree, an enormously powerful head start toward the American dream. These funds can be used for college, starting a business, or purchasing a home. This is truly a transformational, nonpartisan program. So I encourage everyone listening with a child to establish a Trump account today for your child and tell everyone you know with children to do the same. The app is also incredibly inviting and easy to use for parents at home. Finally, let's turn to the border. Brand new numbers this week from the Department of Homeland Security and Customs and Border Protection confirm that for the 14th straight month, this administration has released 0 illegal aliens into the United States. Again, let me reiterate, the 14th straight month, not a single illegal criminal alien has been entered into our country, released into our country by this administration. Illegal crossings in June remained at historic lows, and Southwest border apprehensions are down 94% compared to the same period under the Biden administration. These numbers speak for themselves. Thanks to President Trump's strong leadership and unwavering commitment to law enforcement, America has the most secure border we have ever had in our nation's history. The administration continues working to reverse the previous influx of millions of illegal aliens into our country by the Biden administration, and our law enforcement professionals, God bless them, are arresting criminal illegal aliens across the country, including those convicted of the most heinous and violent crimes. This past weekend alone, ICE arrested a Mexican national and gang member convicted of second-degree murder in California, a Dominican national convicted of aggravated manslaughter in New Jersey, a Saudi national convicted of indecent liberties with a child in North Carolina, a Mexican national convicted of continuous sexual abuse of a child in California, a Nicaraguan national convicted of second-degree child molestation in Rhode Island, and a Mexican national convicted of lewd acts with a child under 14 with force in California. These are egregious crimes, and again, I think we can all agree that none of you would want these individuals living in your communities, and you have this administration to thank that they are on their way back home. The American people delivered a decisive mandate to arrest and deport these dangerous criminals, and President Trump is wholeheartedly committed to delivering on that mandate every day. He will never waver in his duty to defend our homeland and protect the American people, and he has proven without a shadow of doubt that the chaos and the lawlessness that we saw every single day at the border and across our country under the Biden administration was a choice, and it is a choice this president has chosen not to make. While this work is far from finished, the border is secure, and deportations will continue. With that, I'll take your questions today. I look forward to doing so. I know there's a lot of news. We have two people in our new media seats today, Rachel Bade and Ben Black. Rachel, why don't you kick us off? Ben will give you a question, and then we'll get to the rest of all of you. Thanks, Rachel.
Thanks, Caroline. Welcome back to the briefing room, and congrats on your baby.
Thank you.
Two questions,
Sure.
If I may. The first one, a fun one for your first day back. You now have two babies under 2 years old.
I do.
As someone who has a 4-year-old, I can only imagine how little you are sleeping right now. What is your one tip or secret to women who want to have it all, the kids and the hard charging career?
Well, thanks for the question, Rachel, and it is really good to be back with all of you. I don't think there is a secret. You just have to show up every day and keep going, and it really does take a village. Take the opportunity to shout out to my husband, who's home with our babies right now. I look forward to returning home later to be with them, but it's challenging. But for me, I view this as more than a job. I view this as public service on behalf of a president who I firmly believe in everything this administration is doing and really creating a better country for my children and their future, and I'm very grateful for that. Blessed to both be working in this job, but also to have two beautiful babies at home. And as you know, Rachel, and any mom in this room knows, there's nothing better than being a mother. So thanks for the question.
Babies are the best. Okay, a question about tonight. There are a lot of Republicans in this town who very much support the SAVE Act and want to make sure, our elections are upheld, election integrity, top priority for them. But some of them are concerned that tonight's primetime address might focus on, elections of the past, relitigating them, rather than voter concerns of today. I'm wondering, can you tell us if the president tonight is going to talk about the economy? You just talked a lot about the economy and what we're seeing there. And what does the White House say to Republicans who are worried that election issues like this could actually turn off swing voters?
Well, a few things. I would encourage everyone to tune in tonight. I've seen a lot of reporting and frankly misreporting about what the president will say. I think the American people will be relieved to hear what they are hearing from the president of the United States and his commitment to transparency and the focus on the integrity of our elections tonight. I think all Republicans and Democrats should recognize this should be a nonpartisan issue. If we don't have safe and secure elections in our country, we cannot have a country. It is a vital part of our democracy, of our constitutional republic. The president will be speaking about that tonight. And in addition, at the very same time, of course, he is working on all of these economic issues that the American people have at home. I just read to you the latest inflation numbers are looking good, the best report in 6 years. The president, Republicans and Democrats and all Americans have this president to thank for the largest tax cuts in American history, which every Democrat on Capitol Hill voted against. You have this president to thank for the Trump accounts for our children and securing the future of the American dream. So this president is doing a lot, but obviously safe and secure elections are a true tenet of our constitutional republic, and the president will be speaking about that tonight. Thank you. And Ben, please.
Hey, so I'm from England. I've been following the World Cup all around, absolutely loving it. unfortunately, we got knocked out last night, so I'd love to ask a
sorry for
favour.
the loss.
I skipped over that.
Tough day for you today.
Yeah, it's all good though. But I want to know, so all these football fans coming to America, absolutely having a great time. I've had an amazing time. What do you want these football fans to take away from their time in America?
Sure. Well, I'm so glad you enjoyed your experience here in our country, and sorry for the loss. We look forward to the final match on Sunday, and I know the president looks forward to attending, but I think the world saw that this president and this country is able to put on the greatest show in sports in the world. And we are a kind people, we are hardworking people, and we have the best country on the planet. And I know I've loved seeing the videos from foreigners from around the world who have traveled to the United States and have been quite surprised about how lovely and enjoyable the United States is. I don't think we get enough credit from the international media around the world, but we encourage everyone to come and experience America for themselves. So thanks for being here. Experience here in our country, and sorry for the loss. We look forward to the final match on Sunday, and I know the president looks forward to attending, but I think the world saw that this president and this country is able to put on the greatest show in sports in the world. And we are a kind people, we are hardworking people, and we have the best country on the planet. And I know I've loved seeing the videos from foreigners from around the world who have traveled to the United States and have been quite surprised about how lovely and enjoyable the United States is. I don't think we get enough credit from the international media around the world, but we encourage everyone to come and experience America for themselves. So thanks for being here.
I've absolutely loved it.
And safe travels home. You're welcome.
Karoline.
Garrett.
Caroline, welcome back.
Good to see you.
Likewise. To the degree that this speech tonight is about elections past, not elections upcoming, the 2020 election has had dozens of recounts, lawsuits, audits. 2024 election widely believed to be safe and secure. There's not really any question about that. A lot of people look at this.
Because it was too big to rig.
Well, I think a lot of people look at this
There's a
and
massive amount of votes for this president. That's why he's in the Oval Office
there were,
right now.
No one disputes that. And there were a significant amount of votes for Joe Biden, who won in 2020. I think the question is, why is the president unable to let this go?
Well, first of all, Garrett, I think part of the problem is that the media has refused to acknowledge that tens of millions of Americans across the country share the concerns of this president about the sanctity of our elections. And your premise of your question, you're jumping ahead to a conclusion in this speech before even hearing it yourself. I think that everyone should tune in tonight, including the people in this room, and you should report on the president's speech and the findings that he is going to reveal in this speech with a little bit of honesty and a little bit of integrity, because it will shock you if you have an honest eye listening to the president tonight, and everything he is saying will be backed by facts and by evidence that will be provided this evening. And again, Garrett, I think all Americans, Democrat, Republican, should agree that we are the greatest country in the history of the world. We should have the safest and most secure elections in the history of the world. And what the president will be speaking about tonight will show you that perhaps that is not the case, and we need to make some adjustments moving forward, including the Save America Act, as Rachel pointed out, is a key legislative priority for this president on Capitol Hill, and he wants to see all senators and members of Congress voting in favor of the Save America Act, because it's crucially important as we move forward.
Thank you.
Assuming the pink is for your baby girl.
You know, I didn't think that, but I guess it is now. Thank you.
We've talked a little bit about what the president might say tonight, but the other question is, who is running the teleprompter tonight after this report that the other guy is now under investigation for making money off of reading the president's speech?
Obviously, I'm aware of the report. The president is too. I spoke with him about it. He believes it's deeply unfortunate and frankly a disgrace. And the individual that was cited in that report is complying with the CFTC, but has been put on paid administrative leave. So there will be a teleprompter operator tonight, of course, but it will not be the one, unfortunately, in that story.
One more on Iran. The vice president, J.D. Vance, went on this podcast with Joe Rogan yesterday, talked about Israel, in which he said that there are some people within their system that we know beyond a shadow of a doubt who are manipulating and trying to change American public opinion to keep the war going on indefinitely. Does the president agree with that statement?
I think the president would certainly agree that, yes, foreign countries certainly do try to persuade American public opinion. There's no doubt about that. I think it's just a basic fact. Ed.
Good to see you, Caroline. Following up on the teleprompter and then one on tonight's speech, what steps is the White House taking to ensure something like that doesn't happen again?
Well, the White House has extremely strict ethical guidelines with respect to issues like this. And as I just told you, this individual will no longer be here. He'll be on paid administrative leave. I'm sorry, without pay. The administrative leave is unpaid, to be very clear. That was a decision by the president. So I think that speaks for itself.
On the concerns about the election, will the president accept the results of November's elections?
Look, Ed, you should tune into the president's speech tonight before you jump ahead to conclusions about what's actually in the speech. Again, I've seen a lot of reporting and misreporting about what the president will say. We hope CBS will take the speech, and all Americans should take it.
Okay, but I'm not presuming it. I'm just asking will he accept the results?
Caroline, two questions on the Trump accounts. First, following the birthright citizenship case, is there concern that babies that are born to illegal immigrants here in the United States are not excluded from these accounts? And also, since the $1,000 per child from the Treasury seeds these accounts, can you assuage concerns from those who feel this is wealth redistribution?
I would certainly not describe it as that. As you know, this was an incredible private-public partnership. We had incredibly generous Americans, Michael Dell and many others, who contributed to the fund for the Trump accounts. So that money will then be passed along to America's children, which I think is a great thing that all Americans from all political persuasions can agree upon. With respect to your question on birthright citizenship, I think the president has made his view and the White House has made our view on this case quite clear. We're going to continue to move forward to work with Congress, hopefully in the future, to remedy this problem in our country and to ensure that we cannot have this scam continuing where you have foreigners from all around the world traveling to our country to give birth to babies who are then given the greatest privilege on the face of the planet, American citizenship. That's not how our founding fathers intended this country to work or to operate, and the administration is committed to finding solutions to remedy that.
Do they have access to the Trump accounts, those are children of those illegal aliens?
That's not something I've discussed directly with the president, so I don't want to speak out of turn on that. As you know, Carrie, all American citizen children are able to access the Trump accounts as it stands right now. Sure, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Mark Stone from Sky News. Can I switch to Iran, please?
Sure.
And specifically, the Manab school attack. 120 children dead, 26 of their teachers. A Sky News investigation released today points to all this being a tragic mistake by America, by the US military. So could you explain, please, why the president is repeatedly saying it wasn't America when he hasn't actually, he says also that he hasn't even seen the report?
I can't speak to the Sky News investigation respectfully because I have not read it. All I can speak to is what the president has said as I speak on his behalf, and the investigation continues, and we would defer you to the Department of War for further questions on it.
Do you mind following up, if I may?
Sure.
I just want to
My
understand.
answer's not going to change.
I just want to understand why he consistently says it wasn't us, we didn't do this, when all the evidence and indeed the preliminary report, and we've spoken to a military insider who says this was human error.
Well, that's the president's opinion, and at the very same time, he has said the Department of War is investigating the matter, and we would defer you to them for any questions with respect to the investigation, which obviously has not been released yet. I would defer you to them for further questions on it. But there's been, I think the president feels that way because he knows that our military always acts in good faith and absolutely never targets civilians or children, unlike the other side of this conflict, Iran, who is well known for killing women and children and innocent people in their country for a very long time. So you should focus on that in your reporting.
Welcome back. Another World Cup question, much as it pains me. President Trump had some harsh words for Spain at the NATO summit last week about their spending. Does that mean he's going to be supporting Argentina Sunday?
Danny, it is a really good question, and I'm disappointed in myself for not asking the president before I came out here, knowing you would probably ask. I haven't talked to him about it, but we'll get you an answer on that. You're welcome to ask him yourself at some point before the game. I'm sure you'll see him, and I'm sure he'll have a fun answer for you on it. Sure, in the middle, go ahead. Sure, Jasmine, go ahead.
Thank you, Caroline. Welcome back.
Thanks.
Back on the teleprompter issue, Notice reported earlier this year that Kalshi was inaccessible on the Wi-Fi that journalists hear at the White House have access to. Are staffers back in the West Wing and other parts of the EOB, et cetera, do they have access to Kalshi and Polymarket on their Wi-Fi?
On our work computers? Yeah. Honestly, I've never tried, so I don't know. But I'm happy to go try and get you an answer on that.
Another question, Caroline.
In the back, Reagan.
Sure. I just wonder,
Jasmine, go ahead, and then Reagan, go.
Are there any other White House staffers or people within the administration who are suspected of also placing bets on Kalshi or Polymarket or other things with some of this privileged information?
Not to my knowledge. Not that I've been made aware of. And as you saw, I think this played out exactly how it should. Kalshi notified the CFTC of suspicious activity. They investigated that, identified the individual, and he will now no longer be working at the White House. So I think that answers all the questions on this matter. Reagan.
Thank you, Caroline. I have a question for you on the Save America Act and Senator Graham, and then a quick question on Iran.
Sure.
Trump said in one of his final conversations with the late Senator Graham that he was talking about the Save America Act and that he felt like they were in a great position with it. Do you anticipate that the Senate is going to be more aggressive to push the Save America Act in light of the fact that it was so important to Senator Graham so close to his death?
Sure. Well, since I haven't had the opportunity, let me just express my sincere condolences to Senator Graham's staff and his family. He was beloved by so many here at the White House, especially the president, and I know that the news of his sudden passing was just tragic to all of us, especially the president, who considered him a dear friend. The Save America Act, as I said, Reagan, is of vital importance to this president, and he wants to see it move forward. I understand that Capitol Hill and Speaker Johnson are moving forward with attaching as many elements of the Save America Act as possible to the Budget Reconciliation 3.0. Here we go. The president is supportive of that process, and he hopes that Republicans will vote for this important piece of legislation. The Budget Reconciliation bill not only will address the Save America Act, but also ensure important aid for our farmers and our war fighters, which the president supports as well. Brian.
Thank you, Caroline. Welcome back.
Thank you.
On the Kalshi situation, I have just a few questions on that.
Sure.
This individual has been accused of making trades around the president's speeches for months. I mean, this has been going on since at least earlier this year, maybe even before that. Did the White House counsel have any awareness that this was going on with this individual? And if not,
no.
So if no, then why not? Is there any sort of plan in place to try to figure this out, to see if anyone else is doing this, or to track future people from, see if they're making these types of bets in the White House? Any discussions around that?
Look, there are very strict ethical guidelines here at the White House that explicitly state not to do this, and the White House counsel's office makes that clear to all of us who sign up to work in government on behalf of the president. So I think there has been a plan in place. This individual unfortunately violated the plan, and therefore he's paying the consequences for it. I don't know why there's further questions on it.
I just want to follow on this, but then doesn't that leave open the possibility, even though there are the rules, I mean, there's no disputing there are strict rules on this, but if there are no mechanisms in place, and then I'm not saying that there should and should not be, but if there are none in place to try to track this happening inside the White House and inside the executive branch of the government, doesn't that leave open a possibility for this to keep happening or happening again, and these result people making bets like this inside the administration?
Again, there are very strict ethical requirements required by all staffers and officials here at the White House, and if they are violated, people will pay consequences for that, as you're seeing with this case. Libby.
Caroline, welcome back.
Thank you.
I have a question about Senator McConnell, but first on Iran. President Trump has now greenlit strikes on Iran for nearly every day this week. Does the White House describe negotiations more at a standstill or essentially completely over?
Well, I've spoken with the president about this as recently as an hour ago. Iran very much continues to talk to the United States of America and express that they want to make a deal with us because they are suffering devastating blows on behalf of our United States military. The reason, and this is important for the American people to understand, the reason for the recent strikes over the course of the last several days is because Iran violated the memorandum of understanding that we struck with them. Specifically, in the memorandum of understanding that they signed, they were not to fire on commercial vessels moving through the Strait of Hormuz. And unfortunately, they have made the tragic decision for them to do that. And President Trump is not going to sit by and allow these active acts of terrorism to take place in the Strait without ensuring Iran pays consequences consequences for that, and that's what we are witnessing right now.
Talk to him about this within the last hour. I mean, does he essentially seem fed up with these negotiations? And can you explain why the American people should think that a deal with Iran would even be worthwhile at this point, given the fact that they broke it already?
Well, look at how bad they are behaving. It just proves the president's initial point for launching Operation Epic Fury in the first place. Iran can never obtain a nuclear weapon. That's why he launched Operation Epic Fury. They have suffered devastating blows to their military and their economy as a result. The president is always open and willing to diplomacy. He is the peace through strength president after all. After Operation Epic Fury, the conclusion of it, we did move forward into a diplomatic phase, if you will. But unfortunately, Iran has since violated that. They have expressed they still want to make a deal to the president. We're talking to them, but again, the president is not going to allow them to fire on ships in the Strait without paying a consequence for that. And I think just one more point, I think throughout this entire endeavor, the president has proved not just to Iran, but to the entire world that we can hit Iran anytime, anywhere, any place, and their ability to defend themselves has been essentially wiped out because of this president and Operation Epic Fury in the first place. Sure. Lena, go ahead.
Thank you so much. Welcome back.
Thank you.
2 questions for you. If I can read 2 comments, one made by President Trump and one made by the Vice President on Iran. President Trump recently said, as far as I'm concerned, it's just a waste of time dealing with them. They're liars. There's something wrong with them. They are cuckoo. They are scum, sick people, vicious, violent people. And then Vice President Vance went on Joe Rogan last night and he said, I'm very frustrated by the Americans and frankly by people in other countries who say you cannot negotiate with the Iranians. So your response to these contradictions, because I think you can understand how that's confusing for Americans with this mixed messaging. And then second question for you, at least 6 Americans are still detained in Iran. Will President Trump make this conditional, a point of condition in continuing these conversations with the country as well as political prisoners and also people that are still being executed in Iran to this day?
Sure. To your second question, I'll never create a red line or a condition on behalf of the president without his blessing. I haven't heard him say that, but obviously ensuring the return of Americans wrongfully detained or held hostage all over this world remains a priority for him, and he has done so in a tremendous way over the course of the last year and a half. Americans from all over the world have returned home thanks to this president and the efforts of his national security team. To your first question about the comments between the president and the vice president, respectfully, I do think you're taking comments from different times throughout this conflict and kind of asking me if these are contradictory of each other. I can tell you the president, vice president are on the exact same page about where we are right now in this conflict. And the fact that you do see elements of what's remaining in the Iranian regime that are more willing to make a deal, and then other elements who are not so maybe willing to make a deal, shows that Operation Epic Fury was incredibly effective because we neutered their ability to communicate with one another, and they are a fragmented system. They are not the once very strong, powerful terrorist state that they were before this operation, which was one of the ultimate goals. So we'll continue to work through the process, and as I said, the president will hold them accountable when they turn their back on the words that they state to the United States, but he is always open to diplomacy at the very same time.
Thank you, Caroline. Sure. Regarding the president's speech tonight, he's been in office over 540 days now. If what he says is tonight is backed up by evidence, why hasn't anyone been charged?
Well, he hasn't revealed it yet. He hasn't declassified the documents yet, and you will see what he says tonight, and then we'll move forward appropriately from there.
Tonight from the Justice Department?
I don't speak on behalf of the Justice Department, Caitlin, you know that. Rachel. You'll have to ask the Justice Department. I don't charge people. I just speak on behalf of the president. Rachel.
Thanks, Caroline. Welcome back. Just a point of clarification really quick. On the staffer who is accused of profiting off of the president's speeches, he said he'll no longer be working here. Is he on administrative leave or is he going to be fired after that's over?
He's on unpaid administrative leave right now.
Okay. And just to follow up on the president's speech tonight, I mean, we've been talking to a lot of Republicans over on Capitol Hill. They have said that focusing on the economy is the right way to go ahead of the midterm elections. They believe that's what voters care most about. What does the president say to Republicans who think that focusing on the 2020 election, election integrity, all of these issues right now is not the right approach so close to the election?
Well, again, you guys have not heard the speech yet, so I would digress with the criticism until you actually hear what the president is going to say and what he's going to say. the American public. I would also add again that the administration and especially this president are able to walk and chew gum at the same time and tackle a number of issues on a number of different subjects every single day. We see that president do that, working around the clock on foreign policy, on domestic policy, all of the time. You all report on it, you have to keep up with it, so I think you can agree with me on that point. And I would also add, the president will continue to be traveling all around the country to talk about the economy. We were just in Pennsylvania a couple weeks ago touring a Mack truck facility, which has been greatly strengthened and enriched because of this president's economic policies over the last year and a half, and he loves doing that and he will continue to do so. Jennifer, go ahead.
We have seen with the increased community strikes a real decrease in traffic through commercial traffic through the Strait of Hormuz. What is the U.S. doing right now to facilitate flows through the Strait of Hormuz and preemptively address the risk that Houthis will actually choke off the Red Sea oil route and that prices will increase further before November?
Sure. Well, two separate questions. First, let me address what's happening in the Strait right now. We know that there is a blockade of ships directed by the president for ships entering and departing Iranian ports only. This has been fully implemented and is in full force. This blockade was reimposed due to Iran's inability to honor their agreement with the United States of America. More than 10,000 U.S. sailors, Marines, and airmen, along with 2 aircraft carriers and more than 20 warships and dozens of aircraft, are executing the blockade mission as we speak. And during the first 24 hours of the blockade, U.S. CENTCOM has redirected 2 compliant commercial vessels and disabled 1 non-compliant vessel. So look, the Strait is open for ships that are not traveling to and from Iranian ports specifically, and the U.S. Navy is there to ensure that can take place. With respect to gas prices, as you know, the price of oil right now is approximately $80 a barrel, maybe a little less. Before I came out here, that's what it was at. Gas prices are down approximately 60 cents a gallon off the peak of this conflict, and the president was honest with the American people from the beginning. There may be temporary disruptions in the oil market, but what we haven't seen is what all of the naysayers said, that there would be massive increases in the price of oil that so many warned about. And that's in large part because of the president's domestic energy policies here at home to revamp our domestic production here, but also the administration has taken many swift actions to mitigate these temporary disruptions. As you know, we've released oil through our SPR, the Jones Act waiver, which has been incredibly effective, fuel environmental waivers. We also, the president signed the Defense Production Act to restart California oil production. So all of these very swift and mighty actions on behalf of this administration have led to a rather stable oil market, and the president will continue to do all he can to ensure prices come down, stay stable for the American people and the American consumer until the end of this conflict. And ultimately, I think Americans should keep in mind why we're doing this in the first place, to ensure that Iran, a terror state, can never obtain a nuclear weapon. Dasha, go ahead.
Caroline, nice to see you back.
You too.
2 questions, one on tonight and one on immigration. It strikes me listening to the conversation in this room about Iran, given the questions that folks on both sides of the aisle have about strategy and endgame, given that the United States has intensified strikes on Iran, typically in a time of conflict, when the president gives an address to the nation, you would expect him to address this conflict. Number one, will he talk about Iran, and why is that not the major topic of his speech? Does he believe that the SAVE Act and the 2020 election integrity are more important right now?
Well, no, it's not a matter of importance. It's just a matter of timing. The president will be making a very important announcement with respect to the integrity of our elections. However, it is also very possible at the top of the speech he will mention the current situation with Iran and also the economy as well. As you all know, President Trump is a man of his own word, and he sometimes is thinking about these things up until he walks out. But we have had conversations about him addressing a range of topics, and that could very well be possible tonight. Again, this is all more reason for all of you to carry the speech live and for the American people to tune in tonight so they can hear directly from the the president and draw their own conclusions.
Caroline,
go ahead.
Immigration. Caroline, sorry, I just
Karen,
wanted to add the immigration question real quick.
Sure,
Caroline,
go ahead.
Sorry. 3 men were killed in ICE encounters in less than a week. As a result, DHS announced that it would end vehicle stops, and then President Trump urged them to change their position. Can you confirm whether vehicle stops are back on, and is the administration doing anything more to prevent these kinds of deaths, maybe accelerating distribution of body cameras, which weren't present in this case?
So a couple of things. Vehicle stops are continuing. Verbal guidance has been given to all field offices across the country by the Department of Homeland Security. Security. The President and the Secretary of Homeland Security are on the same page that vehicle stops are a necessary tool that ICE agents need in order to continue their deportation campaign of the worst illegal alien criminals from our country. With respect to body cameras, I know there's been some questions about that in recent days. Over half of all ICE field offices now do have body cameras, and the remainder of the field offices are expected within 60 days. It's been a slower rollout than we would have hoped, but that's because of the Democrats' decision to shut down DHS for several weeks. So we expect to fully execute on the promise of body cams to all field offices across the country very soon. Karen.
Karoline, on the parasite outbreak related to produce, can you give an update on the administration's response to this? Are there federal officials on the ground in the hardest hit states right now doing any testing of production facilities or farms to try to figure out where this outbreak has started?
Sure. Well, what I can tell you, having been back at the White House for just a couple of short weeks, I've been in meetings on this very topic, and I can tell you the White House is closely monitoring the situation, has a handle on the situation. We're committed to providing the CDC and the FDA the resources that they need, and we urge all Americans to follow CDC guidance on properly washing and cooking raw ingredients to prevent this foodborne illness. As you know, there has been an unusually high number of cases. There are typically thousands of cases of this outbreak every year, but there has been an unusually higher number, and that's why we're working with the FDA and other partners at the federal, state, and local level to increase detection methods, provide the guidance, and then also, most importantly, trace the outbreak back to its original source, which we are currently in the process of doing.
Lack of permanent leadership at the CDC and FDA and any funding cuts, has that slowed the response to figure out where this outbreak has started?
No, we've talked to the CDC and FDA specifically about that, and not at all. They have the resources they need to make sure that Americans are fully informed and protected from this illness during this time.
Karoline, welcome back.
Thanks.
Last year, the administration signed a critical minerals deal, mining deal with Kazakhstan for a little-known U.S. company. It was an agreement that President Trump and Howard Lutnick got tentative approval for with Kazakhstan's president in September. 6 days before the deal was signed, which was in November, the president's older sons with other partners took a 20% investment in a company related to the deal. What did the president know about his son's involvement in this arrangement, and when did he find out about it?
From my understanding, Maggie, nothing. I've spoken to the president and his family about this. They would absolutely never do anything that would put the president in a place of a conflict of interest. And we have timelines to give you and to provide you, which we did to the news media at the time when this story broke, to prove that very point that I just made.
Sorry, just one second. So the president did not learn about it until it was in the media? That was when he found out?
That's my understanding of the matter, yes.
Caroline,
Go ahead.
Thank you very
Carrie, I'll
much.
go to you after. Just
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Me? Okay.
Why don't we just...
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Kurdish,
Starting in the
very,
back.
very welcome back.
Okay. Thank you.
Yesterday, Iran launched a drone attack against U.S. facilities in Erbil, threatening American personnel and the Kurdistan region, one of the American closest partners in the Middle East. What is your message to those responsible? And are you staying with your loyal ally in the Middle East and at least helping them to defend itself?
Who launched the attack? You're saying
Iran,
yes,
Kurdistan
of course.
region.
Well, I think I've addressed that previously in saying that Iran has unfortunately shown to violate the word that they struck with the president of the United States. They're paying consequences for that in the strikes that the president has authorized in the recent days.
Thank you, Caroline. You were with the president in Ankara for the NATO summit, and there Ukraine was one of
I was not actually.
Oh, you were not. Okay, yeah, but the issue of Ukraine was one of the most important topics there, and the situation is escalating between the two sides in these days, but there are still efforts. Can you give us more information about where we are and how the local power breakers, including Turkey, are involving in order to solve the problem?
Sure, I'll check with the National Security Council and get back to you on that with more specific guidance. What I can tell you is I know the president greatly enjoyed his visit to Turkey, and not just his participation in the NATO summit, where he applauded the United States for getting our NATO allies to step up and pay their fair share for our defense, but also he greatly enjoyed his time with President Erdogan in Turkey and appreciates the bilateral relationship between our two countries. Kara.
Caroline, welcome back.
Thanks.
Contrary to what the mainstream media is reporting, Americans that I speak to care deeply about election integrity.
This is true.
Why do you think the mainstream media is so fearful of tonight's speech and anything to do with election interference? And why are they attempting to discredit President Trump's speech before they even heard it? And lastly, what's your message to AOC, who is asking for President Trump, the mainstream media, to actually censor the sitting president's speech tonight?
Yeah, I think that the mainstream media should air the president's speech and allow the American people to draw their own conclusions from it. Again, I think it's important that the American public hears directly from the President of the United States on a topic that, to your point, is very near and dear to the hearts of many Americans across the country, the integrity of our elections. This should be a nonpartisan, non-controversial issue, and I think you'll hear the President talk about that tonight. So we'll see you then. Thank you.
He was telling the president. All right, there. I knew they would deflect, but I didn't know they'd have diarrhea and calci as their weapons of deflection. For those of you who don't know, and many of you may have looked it up while she was talking, the guy who operated President Trump's teleprompter, so he would obviously see the speech and he would know the words on the speech, was betting on what was going to happen with his speech. And he made, I think they said that he made something like $100,000 betting on Kalshi, which is a prediction market. So he knew what was on the speech. He placed bets. He made money. Yeah, kind of a asshole thing to do. Gonna get yourself caught. Gonna get fired from a top level job. But nonetheless, what the heck does that have to do with anything today? And then the diarrhea. What are we doing about the massive diarrhea? Oh my gosh. I knew they would deflect. I knew they don't want to talk about this. Interesting. Very interesting. You know how you had that graphic about Mark Safe from the Buffalo? You got to make another one saying Mark Safe from violent diarrhea.
I was not yeeted by the explosive diarrhea.
Explosive diarrhea. Oh boy. You could just tell in her face she had it. She's had I just got had a baby. I don't even know why I'm standing on my feet listening to you people. Crazy.
Man,
right.
I mean, can I ask a question 50 different times expecting a different answer? I mean, these people are retarded. I mean,
hey, I need my camera time. It's about me. I got to have my face on camera. It's funny. The feed that I get directly just focuses on her, but so many people who are watching want to see the reporters. So that's why I switched to that Fox feed, because I'd prefer not to even give these people any airtime. That way they wouldn't be so stupid. But they're terrified. They are really worried about what may come out. And I think they're wrong. They are assuming people don't want to know what's coming out. Hey, why bother? It's old. Don't worry about it. We took the election. No big deal. Anthony Fauci made you stick something in your arm. Don't worry about it. It's old news.
Harry, do me one favor when they ask or Collins ask a question, can you make the camera go away? Because I had to make the sign of the cross, bro. RBF. It's bad.
Oh, God. I don't know how you do that. I don't know how she doesn't have like a professional, even when she's on her show, she just looks really nasty.
She's angry all the time. I mean, she's worked millions. I mean, tens of millions probably. I mean, how could you be unhappy when you made all that prosperity? Wait a minute. Define her fair share.
No fair share. They'll be chasing the Kalshi guy now. Oh, you made $100,000. Oh my goodness, too much. All right, so as I mentioned, I'm going to go back into what's his name, Rubio and Stephen Miller, who was fired, and then Scott Besson as well.
I saw that one. That one was the best.
Yeah,
save him for. Yeah. Awesome.
Did you have anything in the interim? I see something here.
Yeah, I mean, I had two little things. So Brandon Gill is trying to file legislation mandating every single person who becomes a United States citizen proves that they are proficient in English. I mean, You know, when I was calling my doctor today, I heard, hola, ¿cómo está? Like, I thought I was calling it like India or something, or like Mexico. I'm like, can I get to the English part, right? So I think that's a great thing. I think that should happen. And then earlier,
if I could, I don't remember, but as I've said, my father came here from Jamaica. I think that was how it used to be. I think you had to know the language, you had to know the customs, you had to basically become an American. That was the whole idea, you know. You had to assimilate. You had to assimilate, not the other way around, you know. But I don't know how that's been pushed to the wayside or anything.
All of it's changed because, you know, like Mandami, he had to pledge allegiance, and he's now doing all the communism stuff. So, yeah, I mean, we got to enforce it. It's got to be better enforced, so that way we don't have all this destruction of our country. I sent you also, there was a link, and I posted it in both chats. It's from the White House. I thought it was very interesting. If you click on it, it should take you to it, I believe.
If I click on it, it's going to probably bounce you out. Okay, yeah, all right. So what is the State Department? Hold on, I'll have to pull that in a different window.
Sure.
Maybe if I do it like this and then
you can cut me out.
No, I can just shrink it and pull it over this way. There we go. All right. So I got skills. I got different kind of skills.
You got
over
man.
Here. All right. So
man,
what
you
is
Mr. IT guy.
Okay, what is it? This is
it's a document that it coincides with what I guess Rubio and others were talking about today about the State Department addresses the international resurgence of far left political terrorism. So it goes into great detail. People could read it on their own time. Say Marco Rubio. So it's very interesting, but it's funny how it's all coming out today to counteract, you know, all the lies and gaslighting from the left media.
Well, they laid it out in bullet point after bullet point too.
Yeah,
so, it's not going to be hard to read if you guys want to click on that link that SP put up there. That's going to be perfect for people to see specifically how that happened. I'm going to save that myself so I can know what excuse me. Here's a really good hint, SP, for X. You could, because what I would do, let me just show you. Because more people would see it if you post it than telling them to go here. So what I will do is I will just come in here and I copy this whole thing and I stick it into an X article.
Okay.
And then you can direct people to it. I'm just a little hint in terms of stuff you can
multiple
put up
ways.
And you can
sure.
So not just for you, but anybody, if you want to share it with friends, and instead of having to get them a link and they got to go stuff, just copy and paste it and say from the State Department, boom, put it right in X article, and now they're already on X and they can all see what's going on. So
yeah, but some people are not on X too. So I mean, I'm trying to give it for multiple ways so everybody gets it. So
yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
all right,
that's all I have for now.
Let me do a quick, brief spot here, and then we'll jump right back into Marco Rubio's speech. All right, thanks, SP.
See you soon.
All right, so guys, do you owe back taxes or have unfiled tax returns? Or have you filed every year, but you still owe money? Did you retire and suddenly get hit with a tax bill you didn't expect? Are you a business owner with messy books and a balance you can't afford? Maybe you pulled money from your 401k or your IRA early, and now the IRS wants its share. However your tax issue started, the outcome is the same. Your balance doesn't go down, never goes backwards, just keeps going up. Penalties, interest, compounds, and many of you are about to owe again for the next tax year with no real plan in place. So stop what you're doing. Call Tax Network USA. The IRS is not going to wait. The IRS is enforcing collections through wage garnishments, bank levies, and property seizures. They can even file for you without your consent. This is where Tax Network USA comes in. With over 15 years in business, there hasn't been a tax situation or case that they haven't seen or been able to resolve. They specialize in tax controversies and helping taxpayers nationwide get back on track by resolving back taxes and unfiled returns once and for all. Whether you owe $10,000 or hopefully not $10 million, their team has resolved over $1 billion in tax debt. They can do the same for you. But you have to make the call. So give them a call now. They're offering a free investigation call with the IRS. Won't cost you anything. And after that investigation, they put a clear case plan in place to resolve your tax problem and get you back on track. This is about using your legal rights to take control before the government sets the terms for you. Don't wait for another IRS letter or frozen bank account. Call 866-686-1377. That's 866-686-1377, or visit tnusa.com/Barry, or you can click the link simply in the description of this video below. So I'm going to go back into right now, without any further ado, let's finish off with Marco Rubio, then we'll get Stephen Miller, and then you got to hear Scott Bessent as well, as I'm calling them today, the three wise men.
And we must identify and map this threat and rebuild our counterterrorism architecture to defeat it, just as we have done together before. Now we must do it together again. Through intelligence and information sharing, through coordinated law enforcement strategy, through financial targeting and disruption, we will dismantle these networks brick by brick. It is time for the people of the civilized world to defend ourselves, to stand united against this encroaching darkness and fight for what is ours. It is easy to destroy great things. It is far more difficult to make them. The enemies of civilization are only capable of the former. They are only capable of destroying great things. All they know is destruction. But we have built great things together. We have done it time and again. We know what we must do, and now we must do it. Thank you for coming today.
So that was Marco Rubio's speech. If you weren't here earlier, we took the balance or the bulk of his speech prior to Karoline Leavitt coming out, and we talked about it and gave some analysis. So now, here comes the second wise man. Stephen Miller now is going to address this audience.
And now I want to introduce someone I work with very closely and has been a leader in this field. He is a Deputy Chief of Staff and one of the key advisors to President Trump. He also heads up all of our Homeland Security initiatives and understands this issue probably as well as anyone in the United States government. Stephen Miller.
Good morning, distinguished leaders and guests. It's good to see so many familiar faces. And thank you, of course, to Secretary of State Rubio for organizing this conference and for leading this initiative. Here in the United States, we have taken the necessary and essential action of formally recognizing left-wing violence as a form of political terrorism that is a direct threat to our national security and the survival of our Republican form of government. President Trump issued a directive, in our parlance, it's called a National Security Presidential Memorandum, or NSPM, NSPM 7 to be exact, that directs for the first time in American history all of our law enforcement and intelligence agencies to work together to disrupt, identify, defund, debank, arrest, and prosecute these political terrorists that are operating in our country. It's very important to understand that left-wing political terrorism seeks as its ultimate end the overthrow of our system and form of government. And we've seen this has taken place many times in many places throughout the years, and Secretary Rubio has provided you many examples. Left-wing terrorism always ends in bloodshed, misery, and suffering. It only can travel in one direction. There's no point at which the left-wing terrorist is satisfied with his gains and ceases progressing. Inevitably, left to run its course, it always becomes a gulag. It always becomes the mass imprisonment of political enemies, the stripping of their rights and freedoms, inflicting immense pain, humiliation, suffering, in order to establish complete and total control. Control through psychological and physical and actual terror. And we have to understand that that is the scope and the extent of the threat that we face. And as Secretary Ruby also pointed out, this is an international network. Antifa, as an example, operates in dozens of countries all throughout the world. They share common networks of funding, and organization, and information sharing. And so all of our intelligence agencies and law enforcement entities should be collaborating and coordinating and working together in order to root out these organizations. One of the hallmarks of left-wing violence and terrorism is its completely pretextual and disingenuous appeal to civil liberties in an effort to shield its own violence. This is the tactic that the left always uses to try to protect itself from facing criminal punishment. It is essential that we are wise enough and strong enough to understand that these appeals must fall on deaf ears. When the leftist, who does not believe in freedom, who does not believe in civil rights, who does not believe in any ordered notion of justice, protests that we are violating his rights, understand that he is lying to try to persuade people who are not closely following the political scene that some injustice has been perpetrated against him. We must stay the course and be completely unflinching in the pursuit of justice against these enemies of civilization. If the left is allowed to use the real or actual threat of violence to destabilize our institutions, then those institutions cannot and will not succeed. So here in the United States, for example, we saw in the recent past clear threats of violence against our Supreme Court to try to shape how they rule on upcoming decisions. The leftist does this with the full desire, intent, and understanding that the threat of violence against a public figure or their family is meant to cow them into behaving or acting or conducting themselves differently. You had the combination of a violent left-wing organization threatening our nation's highest court and the federal government and the Department of Justice turning a blind eye to it. Those are the conditions in which this kind of violence can fester as a cancer and ultimately destroy a society. Nothing that we do works if the threat of violence and terror goes on unchecked. Our political systems don't work, our judicial systems don't work, our legal systems don't work, our jury trials don't work. And at the same time, we have to understand there's a real threat that those who are not themselves terrorists, but who support left-wing violence, will create the conditions that allow that violence to go on without any meaningful inhibition. So, to be specific, we've seen some of our nation's cities in America, like Washington, D.C. and New York City, something, again, it's an American term, but it's known as jury nullification. This is when a person is obviously guilty of a crime, but the juror, because they're ideologically sympathetic to the perpetrator, will not sentence them to the crime for which they've obviously committed. We've seen in the United States, again and again, individuals who are part of left-wing organizations who've committed assaults against ICE officers or federal law enforcement who've been brought to court where clear evidence has been presented against them that the jury has refused to convict for purely political reasons. When you've reached that point, it demonstrates how deeply the cancer has begun to infest your society, where people have created an internal rationalization structure to justify unsanctioned violence against the state and state actors to achieve a political end. We have to use every lawful and legitimate tool that we have to demonstrate that justice will be served and delivered, and to prove that these kinds of tactics and techniques will ultimately fail. If the leftist learns and observes that their violence and criminal activity helps and ultimately succeeds in achieving their desired political end, they will be endlessly emboldened. Here in the United States, we've seen a growing and deeply alarming increase in attempted assassinations against public figures. Most notably, of course, the multiple assassination attempts against President Trump, the successful assassination attempt against Charlie Kirk, many others. This is a fatal cancer to civilization. And the greatest risk that we have is that our institutions have grown too soft and too cowardly to be able to defend themselves against a mortal threat. If your civilization is your home, you must defend it with the same passion and force as if an enemy intruder is inside your own house where your family lives. That is the level of dedication and urgency that is required. And the greatest threat is that even though there are far more of us, there are far more people who believe in order and civilization and liberty and the rule of law, is that if we are softer than those who seek to end us, then the smaller but more radical minority will succeed.
That's the definition of an emergency. There may be more people in your home than the bad guys, but when the bad guys show up to kick in your front door, you may not be prepared to handle it, so you call 911. And so in this essence, they are clearly setting things up for some sort of national emergency act, or like I said, an insurrection act. The threat is so big, he has also used the word, it's also urgent. So an urgent threat is an emergency, especially when it basically seeks to change your way of life. A burglary, someone breaking in your window and to do something nasty to your wife or your daughter or anyone in your family, that is an urgent threat. It's not looking out there and saying, hey, there's a guy in the yard walking around. That may not be urgent yet. But as he said, they are already here. I don't see, as I'm watching him, he doesn't even look like he's reading off of a teleprompter. This guy is absolutely brilliant, meaning all three of these people have come up with the speeches they said. Marco was reading notes. I can't see Stephen Miller reading anything, which probably means he was the architect of this entire speech, this entire event. So they know where they're going with this. And did you find it interesting? Let me just make sure I check myself. I don't recall there was a single question from anybody in that press corps about Rubio, Stephen Miller, or Scott Bessent. They didn't touch this. And I find that very odd.
It is easy to dismiss what I'm saying and to say, surely it cannot be that bad, it cannot be that dire. But again, I point to the examples in our own country where, for example, our Immigration and Customs Enforcement, which has been duly statutory authorized to carry out routine enforcement of immigration law, has been subjected to an over 8,000% increase in violent assaults. These are not one-off episodes. This is repeat, systemic, organized, funded insurrection and armed resistance against the federal.
I'm sorry. Did he just say insurrection? These words have been chosen very carefully. Very carefully. So you have to listen carefully as he's saying this stuff. It's amazing.
Government. There was a sniper from a sniper's nest who, using an assault rifle, tried to shoot ICE officers in Dallas, Texas. These are the episodes that we're talking about, where we have had repeated, direct, violent attacks on federal law enforcement in order to veto the ballot box with violence. And the leftist justifies this violence to himself by saying that they alone are the arbiters of what is right or wrong. Not the law, not history, not civilization, not public opinion, and certainly not God. The leftist assumes for himself judge, jury, executioner. But let's not pretend for a moment that these radical leftists, these terrorists, are operating from a place of sincere political conviction. Sure, there are plenty of useful idiots that they use who may believe these discredited ideologies. The leftist is fundamentally motivated by envy, by hatred, by jealousy. The leftist looks at what is beautiful and what is good and what is natural and is filled with envy and hatred. The leftist looks at a perfect family with the perfect life and a perfect job and perfect kids that goes to church every Sunday and is filled with a feeling of inadequacy and jealousy, and they covet, and they turn those emotions ultimately into a desire to subjugate, to oppress, and to inflict pain and suffering. It's not a coincidence that when you look at these violent Antifa demonstrations, you see any photograph of those who were assembled. To be blunt, not one of the people that is demonstrating looks like a normal person. Not one looks normal. They're all deformed in some way in their appearance, in their dress, in their mannerism. Why is that? Why, if you look at two photographs and you see a normal American street, you see an Antifa protest, why do the people that are violently demonstrating, why is there not one normal-looking person among them? Every one of them, through the course of their life and their decisions, has scarred their body and their appearance in many different ways, to the point in which their outer appearance becomes a manifestation of their inner hatred. Trust your instincts. To all people and across all civilizations, you know what normal is. You know what beautiful is. You know what good is. You know that families are right. You know that children are precious and beautiful and must be protected. You know that the criminal and the junkie and the predator is a threat to normal, healthy living. This is so much deeper than issues about taxation and regulation, although they're incredibly important. It's about normal, healthy, ordered living. And the violent leftists, for these deep-seated reasons, going back to the earliest wisdom taught to us in the Bible about coveting. And I'm not talking about rich versus poor. I'm talking about a much deeper kind of coveting. Coveting people who are morally superior, who are superior in the simple, truthful way they live their lives. People that they look at who are happy and ordered and peaceful and contributing to their communities. That burns an ember in them, and that's how you end up with the horrors we've seen throughout history, where good families are dragged out into the street and executed. And you might say, again, you're describing a future that seems impossible to conceive of. When it comes to preventing these horrors, it is the burden and the duty of good people of all walks of life to understand that you will always be accused of raising the alarm too loudly. If you wait until the point where the worst outcome is so obvious that no one can deny it, you've already lost the battle. That's the fundamental point. If you say, I will not raise this alarm until the threat is so present and so clear and so obvious and so imminent that none can deny it, well, it's already too late. It's already too late. I would rather prevent a threat from occurring and be accused for the rest of my life of having falsely raised the alarm, knowing in myself that I was right, than for fear of being judged having waited too long until the point of no return has been crossed. The good news is that we are far away from the point of no return. So all of us should organize together and work together for the good and the benefit of all the people in our societies, of all walks of life, of all persuasions, to deliver for them what they are justly entitled to, which is to live with safety, with fundamental human dignity, and with the ability to live in peace and harmony with their families and neighbors. Thank you all, and God bless.
Your Excellencies and distinguished guests, United States Secretary of the Treasury, the Honorable Scott Bessent.
Good morning. And before I proceed, I'm going to go off script for a minute, which is always dangerous. But I'm going to remind everyone in this room and all the media that I was the subject of an assassination attempt February 2024 by an adult left-wing activist 2 hours after being sworn into my job.
Did you guys know that? I didn't know that. I didn't know if this is new, Did I miss it that Scott Bessent, somebody tried to kill him too? Are they trying to kill everybody in the Trump administration? This guy has done nothing to anybody. He's the money guy. He's gay. He's supposedly on their team, and they still tried to kill him.
So any of you who want to report that this is a fiction and does not exist, be there for the sentencing this August. So good morning. Thank you, Secretary Rubio, for convening this ministerial and for the invitation to be here. We are here together because the resurgence of political terrorism, transnational in design, and far left in doctrine is no longer the concern of any one nation. It demands a response that draws upon the distinct and combined strengths of every government represented here today. Every government. Ours begins where every campaign of terror does. Its financial lifeblood. And at President Trump's direction, the United States Treasury is bringing the full weight of our authorities to defend the integrity of the U.S. global financial systems.
All right, so now if you look at the three guys who are speaking, you had Marco Rubio, who is obviously the Secretary of State. He brings in everything under the umbrella of the international and bringing all these people together. Stephen Miller, direct line to the White House, special advisory, basically bringing in the strength of the White House. And now Scott Bessent, he's the guy who's going to control money transfers. So he can see through the various banking systems where money is being sent, who is being sent to, who's funding things. This all together, and it helps because now if you bring in an international coalition, now you can bring their banking systems in as well to find out where is this money landing, who's getting this money, who's funding these terrorists. All of this put together spells a very organized organization, not to be repetitive, but this is not just a few people protesting. This isn't just some kids from some college campus who got together and all of a sudden they're going to have this protest. Now you know why there are millions of people supposedly in England and millions of people will show up here. It is very well orchestrated. And so now it is indeed a very defined enemy. See, the left and the media never wanted to acknowledge Antifa because they know once it can be defined as an actual organization, funded, trained, everything, now it is an enemy. They don't have a flag per se, they don't have a country per se, but it is an organization. You can't declare an emergency on protest. You can't declare an insurrection act on a couple college kids wanting to burn the flag. However, now if we can say they're funded here, this is where they train, this is how they're communicating, now you've got an organization that is actually an enemy. Think of it as ISIS. They didn't have a flag. Nope, no flag. But they were well-funded, well-organized, and we use that information to destroy them. Now you can see where this is headed.
More than 20 years ago, in the wake of 9/11, Treasury became the first finance ministry in the world to establish an office dedicated to disrupting the funding networks of terrorist organizations. Treasury's Office of Terrorism and Financial Intelligence, referred to as TFI, was created in recognition of the reality that America's financial system is essential to its national security. TFI
to what? Oh, national security. It's essential to national security. So they might as well have come out and said, listen, here's an organization that is well-funded and they are attacking us as Americans. We need to coalesce behind the government here, and we need to take these people out. We are now declaring these people enemy combatants, and we have confirmed, without a shadow of a doubt, we have confirmed that they are an organization. I don't care if you call them Antifa. I don't care if you call them Democrat socialists. Doesn't really matter at this point. I'm pretty sure as they dig into the money and they dig into all this stuff, there is going to be commonality that is going to allow them, as they're coming out today and saying, this is a matter of national security.
Mandate to identify, disrupt, and disable illicit foreign funds that threaten our homeland has become one of the Treasury's defining responsibilities. And today, we are extending that abiding mission to meet an evolving threat. The resurgence of organized political terrorism has long occupied.
There you go. That's it. Now you guys have all the information. Today, he just said, today we are defining them as a terrorist organization. All these little wet behind the ears college kids who want to put on that scarf and go out there and burn the American flag, your ass is cooked, really cooked.
A blind spot. The international community has struggled to identify this danger, much less defeat it. But as the threat of terrorism evolves, the institution tools that defend against it must adapt. We once understood terrorism principally as an external menace that is no longer the world we inhabit. Increasingly, we are confronting sophisticated, organized networks across borders to incite violence within them. Meanwhile, old ideological boundaries are now giving way to new operational alliances. The unified front between international Marxism and radical Islamic movements need not share the same ultimate vision to share the same immediate enemy of free and self-governing societies. That convergence should concern every government represented in this room. These terrorists understand an enduring truth. Societies are rarely subverted from afar until they have first been weakened from within. So as it tears at the social fabric that allows our societies to function, left-wing terrorism is the visible manifestation of a much broader and more insidious effort to undermine the philosophies that built Western civilization and sustain all we hold dear. Some of these activities are overt: bombings, assassinations, and organized violence in our streets. Others are quieter: campaigns to suppress speech, intimidate political opposition, and sabotage our national institutions. Of course, whatever form they take, none of these attacks sustain themselves. Violence requires money, channels through which funding can move, and institutions behind which it can hide. Increasingly, legitimate nonprofit and charitable structures are being exploited as a mechanism to conceal the movement of illicit funds to support political terrorism. For Treasury, the application of our authorities to combat these networks represents the natural evolution of our mission. Through our Office of Foreign Assets Control, the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, and IRSCI, we have spent decades developing the world's most sophisticated financial counterterrorism capabilities. And now we are mobilizing some of the same tools that we have deployed against terrorists abroad to confront this emerging threat here at home.
We're coming after your money. It's always about the money. BLS came to me. He's like, Barry, Antifa does have a flag. I didn't mean they don't have a flag. My Little League team had a flag. I mean a flag recognized as a nation. They're not a nation, and so the media never wanted to acknowledge them as a real, source of terror. They are now. They are a terrorist organization, and they're about to meet the full weight and force of the American government.
Like every form of illicit finance, these networks rely on the global financial system. It is our mandate to deny terrorist groups access to those channels. Now, we think of nonprofits and charities as good, altruistic organizations, and most of them are. We think they represent the very best of civil society. Many of them do. But the very qualities that make these institutions worthy of the public's trust can also make them appealing to those who endeavor to exploit them. At President Trump's direction, Treasury is expanding its efforts to identify organizations that abuse charitable and nonprofit structures as vehicles for illicit finance. We are examining where tax-exempt status has been exploited, where charitable entities have become financial conduits for foreign influence activity, and how those entrusted with stewardship of these organizations have instead enabled violence. Where the evidence leads, we will not hesitate to follow. And of course, we will hold these organizations, officers, directors accountable. And just as financial institutions must know their clients, they must know their grantees. That work is well underway. In the fall, the United States designated 4 far-left Antifa extremist groups abroad as foreign terrorist organizations, denying them access to the U.S. financial system and depriving them of resources they need to carry out attacks. Meanwhile, in this administration alone, OFAC has also sanctioned 17 sham charities and nonprofit organizations for funding Hamas's terrorist activities and operations. As Treasury continues to map and disrupt the flow of funding that enables these entities to operate, no terror organization should delude itself into the belief that its financing lies beyond our reach. No facilitator should assume that anonymity confers impunity, and no jurisdiction should expect to enable or harbor these activities without consequence. To be clear, in the fight against domestic terrorism, we must respect the constitutional rights, freedom of speech, association, and assembly of all Americans. As such, it is important to emphasize that Treasury will act based on suspected unlawful conduct by these terror organizations, not because of their beliefs or ideologies. At Treasury, this work is mission critical, but we cannot do it alone. The threat is transnational. Our response must be no less so. Indeed, our cooperation must be as disciplined as the networks we seek to dismantle. The global financial system is one of the great achievements of the modern world, and we never must allow it to become a sanctuary for those who seek to subvert it. So on behalf of the United States Treasury, let there be no uncertainty about the work before us and the resolve with which we will undertake it. We will identify illicit funding, however artfully it is concealed. We will dismantle the networks that sustain political terrorism, however respectable their fronts may be. We will pursue those who enable political violence, however distant their jurisdictions, and we will deepen our collaboration with every nation represented in this room for as long as this work requires. This is our commitment, and we ask that you make yours too. Secretary Rubio, thank you again for convening us here this morning. Let us work together to translate the spirit of this ministerial into a commitment that endures well beyond it. And let us deny our adversaries the one thing on which they count most, that those of us assembled in this room will grow weary in our cooperation before they do. Thank you all for being here today, and the U.S. Treasury looks forward to working with you. Thank you.
Wow. Wow. Going after NGOs, going after nonprofits, going after all of the money that funds these miscreants and squeezing them, and then utilizing other countries to grab the money out of bank accounts in different places over there as well, seizing assets around the world. This is going to be awesome. And so you just heard Marco Rubio, Stephen Miller, and Scott Bessent all lay out what I believe is if it doesn't come tonight, it's definitely on the way. Today might be like the triage. We're going to show you what happened. And what you heard just now is how we're going to make sure it doesn't happen again. And then I'm sure he'll have some announcements for November. Now, before we go, I'm running a little bit late. Mike Johnson said this yesterday, which was very interesting, talking about how they are definitely have identified these people, these commies, the Antifas, Democrats, as being enemies of the state.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. Thank you, Carlos Jimenez, for sharing your incredible life story. Thank you to Chairwoman McClain. We're a little more animated these days than normal. I brought a little fire to our House Republican Conference meeting this morning because I feel like Carlos does. I believe everything is at stake right now. This isn't campaign rhetoric. It's not hyperbole. You see what's happening around America. I am often reminded these days of the writings of the founders, the warnings of the people who put together the principles that made us the greatest nation in the history of the world. They warned us against times like this. In more recent times when we were kids, in the 80s, Ronald Reagan used to remind us all the time, you hear me repeat it, you have to understand freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. It is not passed along in the bloodstream. Reagan said it must be fought for. It must be protected. It has to be taught, passed along to the next generation so that they too will understand these principles that hold us together. I'm somewhat of a historian. I'm a constitutional law attorney. I know many of you we're all amateur historians here. You must be if you work on Capitol Hill. You watch and follow these developments. There's a small number of times in the history of America where the actual experiment in self-governance was on the ballot. The idea that we would preserve a constitutional republic, one nation under God, a government of, by, and for the people, all that is in question right now. For the first time really in my lifetime, this is a real question the American people have to decide in November, in a midterm election for Congress and Senate. It's not something that we would have projected. I hoped and prayed it would never come to this, but here we are. The barbarians are in the gate. Last night I did we had a big group actually of VIPs that I took on a tour. I don't get to do that very often anymore, but
Was I muted that whole time? I'm so sorry. What I was saying, I was muted. I hit the button while he was talking. Sorry. Let me rephrase what I was saying. Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House, he's third in line. He's behind President Trump and J.D. Vance. He's number 3. He is sounding a call to arms. Following up what you just heard from Rubio, Miller, and Scott Bessent, the call to arms being made right now is telling you are going to have to fight for this country. Does it mean physically? It might mean physically. It may mean that we have to stand up because things will get ugly. This is what they were made for. They want to cause and sow this type of insanity. But the problem is that these people aren't the kind of people who are going to stand toe-to-toe with you. They're the ones who are going to throw in a Molotov cocktail. They're the ones who are going to try and burn a business down and run because they exist in the shadows. They exist. When we see protest on television and we see the craziness that they do, it's always a group of people who know the people in front of them can't really hurt them. They know that the police only can do so much. They can't strike out, so they pretend. But now, as you're hearing everything that Rubio and Stephen Miller and Scott Bessent have said, how they're going to squeeze their money, they may turn more violent than normal. And so as Speaker Johnson is saying right now, the barbarians are at the gate. That's a strong statement because now what he is telling you is the violent people who want to overthrow America are already here. And I'm not talking about the AOCs of the world. I'm not talking about Bernie. Those people are way, way back. I'm talking about the people up front who are making it known that they want to destroy your way of life. And the only way this is going to work, because President Trump and even the military can't be everywhere, these people, if you see them, understand that your enemy is making itself known.
Tour of the Capitol, a quick one. We wound up on the House floor, and I pointed to them, as you may have heard me reference this often, I think of it a lot. Why did Congress put "In God We Trust" above the rostrum of the Speaker's podium there in the center of the House? It's inscribed in the marble, as you know. You can't miss it when you walk in the chamber. It's the first thing people notice when they walk in at eye level and see it there. And I pointed out that in the Visitor's Guide to the House, it explains that. It says it was put there in 1962, and it says in the Visitor's Guide, it's been published for many years, it said Congress voted to place that there as a rebuke to the Soviets because of their philosophy during the Cold War. What was the philosophy of the Soviets? It's what Carlos just outlined, the same philosophy of Cuba. The brutal dictatorship there that robbed him of his childhood, and so many countless others. They've lost their lives trying to flee from that brutal dictatorship. The philosophy of the Soviets during the Cold War was Marxism, communism, socialism. That's the thing. And when Congress voted in 1962 to put that there, it was right after your childhood in the late 50s when the Castro took over and destroyed Cuba. It was a completely foreseeable result. We were fighting it during the Cold War on distant shores in the USSR. And Congress was resolute on that. They were all united, and they understood that that's not who we are as Americans. The reason we are the greatest nation in the history of the world, the most free, most successful, most powerful, most benevolent, you hear me say it all the time, the reason that we are the greatest nation is because we were built on an entirely different and opposing set of values. Congress put In God We Trust above the rostrum because they wanted to remind everybody who would ever serve in this body in Congress that there is a huge distinction between us and the Soviets' philosophy. Communism, Marxism, socialism, all this begins with the premise that there is no God. It's a totally different philosophy. In our declaration that we just celebrated, 250 years on July 4th, the nation's creed, as you hear me talk about all the time, the second paragraph, we hold these truths to be self-evident and all men are created equal. Our rights come from our Creator God. They do not come from the government.
See, that's a problem a lot of people are having on the left. They don't even want to acknowledge God. Notice he didn't say Christian. A lot of these people have a different problem because they're completely atheist. They don't want any God. See, that's a little bit different than a crazy Democrat or something who may have different ideas. To them, God is an enemy. It's not allowed. You cannot have a God. Government is their God. You can almost see that in terms of all the ways that they try to put government on a pedestal. We make fun of it. We say, oh yeah, daddy got government. Spank me harder, daddy. But that's because they don't have a higher authority. And then the other people, the ones who have the bastardized religion, they just find things to make themselves be able to do what they want to do, which is to lie, deceive, and conquer you. They actually have the ability. Think about a religion that gives you the ability, they say, to lie, to deceive, if it allows you to conquer. That's not the God that our founders here built this country on. That's not the God that you and I and people like us understood as we grew up as kids, as we pledged allegiance. These are different people. And it's hard for some people to actually set that in and think, I've had different political adversaries before, you may think to yourself, but these aren't them. They want nothing to do with your way of life. Nothing. And as he was talking earlier, I forget which one, but they're talking about your children, your grandchildren, your business, your home, your office. None of it do they hold in high regard. None of it. They want to destroy all of it. To what end? Just so we all can be miserable friggin' together.
Communists believe the opposite. They believe that the government the state is God. The state is the one that gives you all your rights. And you know what? The state can also take those rights away. And that's exactly what happens. It's inevitable. Communism and this philosophy has led to the murder of tens of millions of innocent people in the 20th century alone. It is a nightmare. It is a trail to certain death, okay? And that's why we're speaking in such stark terms, because we need America to wake up. We're not even, look, 35 years ago, Republicans and Democrats in Congress, when I was coming up in, the Reagan years, they were fighting communism on a distant shore. Now it's here. But in Congress, they all agreed on that. They obviously knew that we had to fight communism. And so what they were doing here for domestic policy, that was foreign policy. Domestic policy, they were arguing over, marginal tax rates and the shades of regulation and how large the government should be. There wasn't a huge difference, a chasm between the two parties. Those days are gone. Right now, domestically, we are arguing, we are debating, we are fighting. The election will be over whether we're going to maintain our freedom in a constitutional republic, the greatest experiment in self-governance in the history of the world, the longest surviving constitution on the planet, the nation that everybody wants to emulate, and everybody wants to come here. We have to seal our borders so they won't flood over them. We're the only nation in the world that has that distinction. We're the last great superpower. We are the greatest nation in the history of the world. We are fighting right now in Congress over whether we're going to maintain our status as a constitutional republic or we're going to trade that in, dismantle the foundations, and go down this dark road of death to communism. That is the question on the ballot this fall. Now, DSA published their platform. I hope you're all covering. I hope you're writing in depth about their platform.
Okay, what do you say there? If you guys have not been reading, this is the kind of enemy that actually does cause fear, because they're telling you straight up, we're going to destroy this, we're going to destroy the presidency, we're going to destroy the Supreme Court, we're going to get rid of the Senate, we're going to make housing illegal, or rather a human right, so you can't own it. They are actually publishing, they're telling you we want to destroy America. They're not even making any bones about it. And the weirdest thing is now they're in our government. One of the problems I have, and the same thing with the voting, is that you have to understand that the left has had people maybe for decades studying the Constitution. Where is that area where we can make our inroads where they can't do a damn thing about it? And somehow they found out in 2020 that if we go ahead and do this and we make these changes and we cheat this and we fix this election and we get to January 12th or whatever the date is, and they have to certify, there's no remedy. There's no coming back. You have to let Joe Biden be president. There's no courts, because good people founded this country. Good people, when people say, well, that you can't have your Second Amendment and have a AK-47 because they never envisioned you'd be able to fire 100 bullets because they just had muskets. Well, at the same time, they never envisioned that we would have a population of people who didn't want to do the right thing, who simply would do everything possible to subvert the document that they wrote. And so they didn't have anything. They're like, okay, if by chance there's fraudulent voting and you find out there's fraudulent voting, you can do X, Y, and Z. Nope, doesn't exist. Somebody found that. Somebody said between November and January, if we can somehow steal this, there is no remedy. There's no recipe for fixing it. You gotta let him be president. Now, fast forward 6 or 7 years, and now they're realizing they found another loophole. We can actually get communists elected. We can use Saul Alinsky's rules against them. Hey, we're holding an election. We're going to elect under your form of government. We're going to elect under your form of government people who want to destroy you using your own electoral process. What? Yeah, you're going to elect the enemy. They're going to go to the polls and they are going to pull the lever to bring the enemy in. Nobody ever thought people would be that deviant. These people are working on a level of evil that we couldn't comprehend a couple hundred years ago. Think about that. As he was talking about Reagan and everybody else who fought the communists, would anybody ever have thought that communists could use our electoral process and just walk in the front door? We don't have to fire a shot. We don't need missiles. Are you serious? We don't need submarines. We just win the elections from within. And this fungus, this tumor is growing because people are stupid and they're not realizing it's the same thing as just letting the enemy come across your border. Yeah, come on in, all 20 million of you, whatever, come on in. Nobody envisioned that. Nobody envisioned that we would be bringing the enemy into our houses. They would be stealing our food, stealing our money, and we'd be happily giving it to them. And then there would be people who would fight if you found out and you want to turn it off. No, you got to keep giving them SNAP benefits. There's no such thing as a SNAP benefit. There's no such thing as welfare. What it is complete theft of other people's money that you put a nice word to it, supplemental nutritional aspect, whatever, blah, blah, blah. No, you're stealing money out of other people's pockets. You're using our government to fund our enemy. Oh, we're going to tax you and send it to Uganda and Somalia. That's our government saying, or somebody sitting back going, oh, this is the best government ever. No wonder there's no other governments like this in the world. These people didn't realize the bad guys could come in and take stuff without any fight. As we're sending tens and millions of dollars to Somalia and all these countries, and people are stealing it, and we're all standing around for years. This thing has probably happened, and we just let it happen. We didn't fire any shots. We didn't try to take the enemy out. We just sat back. Wow. Now, even worse, the Democrats don't even show up to the hearings. Hey, we're going to have a hearing today. We're going to talk about $20 billion being stolen. Not even interested. Not even, don't even want to show up. Women are getting bad things happening to them in New York City. Mayor comes out, oh, that's because there's different classifications of these bad things now. What do you mean different classifications? Is the dirty deed happening to women who don't want it to happen to them? That's the only definition. Everything that they're trying to do, they use your language. We're told boys can become girls. We got movies where all of a sudden the Odyssey is out today and Helen of Troy is a black African woman. Nothing that you held dear, that you learned, is being respected. And you've got half of the population of the country going, yes, this is fine. This is what we want. Girls can become boys. Boys can become girls. We can have DEI. And now we can have communists in our own government. Oh, this is a fantastic government. You, America, you were right all the time. America is a very, very good country, the best country ever. Any other country, they're taking out back and put two in the back of your head, whereas here, we give you $175,000 a year, Secret Service protection, and you can just destroy the government from within.
I read it out at an event a few weeks ago, and they made an ad mocking me reading their platform. Now they didn't put the clips with the worst parts of it. Representative Jimenez just told you, Carlos told you that, well, of course they want to pack the Supreme Court and they want a unicameral legislature. They want the House to run everything, abolish the Senate, because they believe the House would be run by Marxists, communists. They'll be able to run the table on everything. They want to remove the president. What they also want to do is abolish all borders. They don't want any borders. They want mass amnesty granted to anyone who can come onto our shores without exception, even for terrorists and hardened dangerous criminals. Okay? They don't want prisons. It's in their platform. They want to remove the carceral state, they said. No prisons. They don't want to fund the police. This is not a game. Everybody needs to understand. These crazy little mini Mamdanis who are popping up all around the country, they are a danger to you and your family. This is not a game. If they promise you free stuff, there is far more beneath those promises that even some of these people do not understand themselves. And so we are here as the Republican Party to stand on the founding principles of the greatest nation in the history of the world. It is our duty to do that. And we're doing it on behalf of all of you, even the journalists who don't agree with our policies all the time. You better agree on these principles, because this is what keeps...
That's exactly right. You better agree on these principles. If you think you're some sort of elite class, that you're above all this, that it won't come to your doorstep, Caitlin Collins and some of the other ones, you think it's going to be different for you? I'm with CNN. You think so? How many CNNs are there in Cuba? Nope. Nope. Doesn't work that way. You are willingly letting the enemy in. And worse, you are complicit and you are covering for them. You are enabling the enemy, thinking that you are mightier, that you're bigger, you're an elitist. They're going to strike you down the same way. You've got the model. Go look at these countries. I'm pretty sure there were some journalists in Cuba who'd be like, Castro won't come for me. It'll be okay. Hey, Castro, what's going on? I want your book. What do you mean I got to give up everything? Oh, yeah, we're taking all your stuff, too.
you free. By the way, it's what keeps the press free, okay? This is essential for your well-being and your family. This is not a game. This is not our father's Democrat Party. We're not arguing over marginal tax rates anymore. We're arguing over whether or not freedom is going to survive. And that's why we're so serious about this. Look, I'm a happy warrior, man. I like to get up and have fun, but this is not a fun time. We're in a war. We're in a philosophical war to save the greatest nation in the history of the world. And we take it very seriously. So we recruited extraordinary candidates. We are raising record amounts of money that is necessary to win these elections. And we understand everything is at stake. Ronald Reagan used to quote Abraham Lincoln, and he reminded us that America is the last best hope of man on the earth. As was asked here very well, very articulately this morning, if not here, where? There is no answer to that question. This is the best. Not a perfect nation. We're still in a process of making a more perfect union. But we are working every day to ensure that the principles of individual freedom and limited government and the rule of law and peace through strength and fiscal responsibility and free markets and human dignity are maintained, because that is the formula that makes a successful, free, happy people and a successful nation. I'll take a few questions. Yeah.
Speaker Johnson, there's been a lot of discussion about what's going to be included in this reconciliation bill. Can you walk through how important and how imminent it is that the Pentagon needs additional funding and what that number precisely is going to be in the Republican bill?
So the question was, can you list the specifics of what the request is for the Pentagon? We've seen it's over $350 billion as a request. And some of this is transformational kind of funding that will help us change the dynamic of the Department of War and make it more efficient and effective. It's already the greatest fighting force on the planet, not even close. But there are some ideas, a real vision on how to improve that even further, to bolster that. You've heard the President talk about how he wants to effectively double the funding for national defense. Look, we live in dangerous times. We're fighting communism on our own shores, and we're fighting evil terrorists and tyrants around the world. And we have to be able to protect our national security. So this is not the place to get into the details of that. We are having a briefing tonight at the Pentagon with House Republicans where Secretary Hegseth and his team will go through and outline a lot of this. Much of that's going to be classified, of course. But I can tell you that our resolve is to ensure if there's a list of responsibilities of the federal government, and it is a small list, the appropriate list of what the federal government is supposed to be, remembering in our matchless system, under our constitutional system, most of the power is supposed to be reserved to the states and the people. But there's a few list of responsibilities that must be done by the federal government, and obviously national defense is one of them. It is the first priority to protect the people. By the way, in his State of the Union a few months back, the President asked that very important question of the body. Hey, stand and applaud if you think the number one job of the federal government is to protect American citizens and not illegal aliens. Every Republican stood for long applause. Every Democrat sat scowling on their hands. That's everything you need to know. A picture's worth 1,000 words, a video's worth even more. Go replay that. We're going to take care of national defense. We're going to meet our first priorities. We're going to do it in the order that we can gather the votes for. Reconciliation 3.0 is in process. There will be a markup this week. I was on the phone with Chairman Arrington until late last night. We're working out the details of that. I'm expected to be noticed today for a markup on Thursday. And you will see the details of that, and I'm not going to unveil it here at a press conference this morning because we're working through with members, as you know how this is done, to build consensus so we can lay that out. So stay tuned for more on reconciliation.
The ICE agents who killed a person in Maine yesterday were reportedly not using body-worn cameras, and that's despite DHS officials coming to Congress and repeatedly saying over the last few months that they want to expand body camera usage. Does there need to be accountability on DHS from Congress here?
I don't know anything about this event. Okay, I was a little busy yesterday, so I'm going to reserve judgment. I know that there was a tragic shooting, and I'm not going to comment on it because I don't know. And you guys can mock me for not knowing that. I worked about 22 hours in the last few days, and I did not get the briefing on that yet. I will this morning. Yes.
Thank you, Speaker. Do you commit to putting Lindsey Graham's Russia sanctions bill on the floor in the House?
We've long supported a Russia sanctions bill. The vast majority of the Republicans do, and I was heartened to hear that apparently Senate Republicans in the White House have come up with a formula that they think will work, and we're happy to receive and process that. I think it's appropriate. I've always felt that way. So yeah.
Last question, guys. On Iran and the Strait of Hormuz, the president says that the MOU is dead, hostilities are back on, and says the 60-day clock is just reset. Is it time to consider an AUMF vote? And when it comes to the toll that the U.S. is reportedly going to be charging, is that really proper? I mean, in the past, the administration has said there should not be a charge. and now 20%.
I'm going to let the White House answer to that. We're still awaiting further details on the toll idea. I was with the president for about 3 hours yesterday. We talked about it very briefly because we had a lot of other things on the agenda. I think we're awaiting further details and we'll determine that. With regard to the Strait of Hormuz, there is a memo of understanding, but Iran seems to have no interest whatsoever in maintaining any of those provisions. And when they are firing on commercial vessels in the Strait of Hormuz, it's a danger to all freedom-loving people around the world and the economies of almost every nation on the planet. And so the response from America is appropriate. What do you do with these people? Listen, they're not good faith actors. They cannot be trusted. The people that are in these negotiation rooms, as the president said himself yesterday, they will say one thing and literally walk out the door and do the opposite. So it's a very sticky situation there. When you're trying to have a negotiation with someone who you know is lying to you to your face. That's the challenge we have, and we trust the administration is going to continue to work to resolve this. We need to. We want to, of course. I'm heartened that gas prices have not risen again. We're about $70-something a barrel last time I checked. We need to keep that under control, and commerce in the Strait of Hormuz is important. There's at least, by my count, dozens of nations, scores of nations probably at this point, who are willing to assist, I think, if asked, to help police the Strait of Hormuz, so we'll see how that develops. I think it's a job for everybody. I'm going to defer for closing comments to Carlos Jimenez because there's something on his heart, I think. Go ahead.
Yeah, the speaker made mention of the fact that the Democratic Socialists are promising to defund the jails. That's a lie, and I'll tell you why. The lie is that not only will they keep the jails, they'll add more jails. And the jails will be for those political dissidents that are willing to express their views. In Cuba, the Constitution says this. Today's Constitution says there's only one party that's allowed, and it's a Marxist Fidelist, as follows Fidel, and Leninist ideology, and that if you even express an opinion otherwise, that you want some other kind of government, you are considered a traitor and then subject to death. And so anybody, just ask all the folks that went out on July 11th a couple of years ago, what happened to them? Their prisons were opened up and they were put in prison. So it's not that prisons are going to go away. You're going to have more prisons. Soviet Union under the KGB, the East Germany under the Stasi, and then Cuba today under its security forces. They have plenty. They had and have plenty of political prisoners.
You know, when you think about it, what he just explained and outlined was President Trump's poem that he reads, The Snake. And he was telling the media, you can have no dissent. You understand, you're talking to people whose sole job is to come off as adversarial and pick a side that they choose and write a post or write an article or put up a video, something where they figure they're more important. They are the story. And he's trying to convey to them, there was definitely people in Cuba who thought they would be truth tellers. And once it happened, once the snake got let in and the economy went to hell and people started dissenting, well, you at one point may have been cheering for him, and then eventually when you couldn't eat or couldn't go anywhere and you couldn't leave the country and you couldn't turn on your air conditioning, you couldn't buy a car, now all of a sudden you're a dissident. Even though you were like so happy that Castro was coming in, now you're stuck and you can't talk, or if you do, you get the gallows. I don't know if our media is too stupid, too young and stupid, haven't done any research to understand how this thing works that they are currently cheering on. The fact that they hate Trump so much that they're actually sizing themselves up for the rope. Yeah, but you know what? It's a little tight here, but I don't think anyone's going to kick the stool out from underneath me. Hey, just try this on. See how this fits. Oh, yeah, it fits pretty good. Okay. It's coming for you. Not just for us, not just for me, for anyone who doesn't like what they want. You want to empty the prisons? Let them all out. You want to bring in all the people from around the world? You got a house? Nope, your house is too big. You got extra bedrooms. You can't, people have to be quite stupid, quite stupid. By the way, SV, I know he's been waiting for a while. I'm going to go ahead and put the story up already. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, tell me about it. What's going on? We blowing stuff up again?
Yeah, that was about an hour ago. So what is this? Round 6, 7, 8? I don't know. Another round of airstrikes against Iranian regime. At 2 p.m., U.S. forces began conducting a new wave of strikes against Iran for the 5th consecutive night to further degrade Iranian military capabilities. I mean,
What's
I know
left?
we don't hear. I know we're not, thankfully, not hurting civilians, but like you don't hear any body count. But like, we're blowing crap up over there, I guess.
What exactly is left at this point? I mean, it's we don't know. It's just.
I don't see any camels. There's any camels left?
Or
goats?
Or any manner of like physical transport. Do they got tractor trailers bringing food in? I mean, if you can't get boats in and you can't get oil in, how are they getting food? Nobody talks about. You've noticed that they don't talk about that.
Yeah.
If we have a blockade, I don't know how people eating.
Hey, they're eating bugs. I guess they're eating bugs and like it. I mean, I'm not trying to make it like too humorous, but I mean, seriously, it's not like they can go to a U-Crops or something and pick up some food. It's getting pretty dire. Hopefully, this is going to make them capitulate, and eventually they'll stop, saying yes, we agree, and then they don't agree.
It tells you how little they care for their own people. All right, so tell me about this before we jump. Tell me about this. I haven't even had a chance to read it, so this is on you.
Yeah, so this was earlier today. More going into the fraud aspect. This is interesting. Acting Labor Secretary Scott Sunderling is leading efforts to crack down on unemployment insurance fraud after an estimated $135 billion was stolen during the COVID-19 pandemic through schemes involving stolen Social Security numbers, payments to deceased individuals, and other fraudulent claims. Sunderling says the administration is taking action against states with weak safeguards and pushing a verify first, pay later approach to protect taxpayer dollars and ensure benefits reach the Americans who need them.
Wow.
I mean, when you add up all this fraud, it's like it's half of our national debt, for Pete's sakes. I mean,
SB, I told you, the networks, if there's anyone on Fox or anyone that listened to me, you need to do like the COVID style thing and just have like a lever in terms of how much fraud we have come to find out. I mean, the numbers are, people can't comprehend them because there's so much. I mean, literally, what must we be up to at this point? 300-400 billion?
Well, no, it's more than that. I mean, it's trillions, and that doesn't even account for what we're finding. We found in Minnesota, and then now New York City, and then California is probably going to be possibly in trillions of dollars. So, hey, before I go, I have a PSA. So, one of our users, Louisa Sigala, you're in there. I see you're in there. You said you had blocked me. So, for anybody who has been blocking someone else, or, I mean, you could block a mod, but I could see everything you're posting. All you have to do is go to myaccount.google.com/block list. Go into your account settings, and everybody has a block list, and you can remove or add people. So if you want to see what I'm typing in there, you can go in there. Okay. So anyway, hope that helps, Louisa.
Thank you for your attention in this matter. As
trying to help people.
Trump would say. All right, so we're going to be north of 3 hours again here.
Big show tonight.
Big show tonight. 8:30 or so. I may go a little bit earlier. I've got some video to show you this evening. So the only reason why I can't say at 8:30 is the grandson is having his final practice today. It goes from like 6 to 7:30, but I got everything done, so I won't be late. I'll just be able to come in and turn on and ready to go. So let's figure on 8:30 tonight. Yes.
Question: do we have any gift card giveaways tonight?
We will be doing 6 gift cards at $50 each tonight.
Come on back,
Ashley has challenged me that I've got to be able to do some sort of artwork where if the screen is open while he's talking or something, because obviously I'm not going to interrupt anything he has to say. But we'll see how we can make that work. I got to come up with 6 questions. I don't know if I
Sounds
can
good.
come up. I don't know if I can come up with 6 questions just on Trump. So they may be based upon America 250 or something like that. Maybe our
Sure.
founding fathers, giving people some Jeopardy categories here.
Yeah.
Founding
Make them
founding
Google a little
fathers,
harder.
Trump.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we do a little bit more work. So six gift cards at $50 each tonight. So come back at 8:30. We'll see that. I do have, and before I go to Super Chats, I want to show you something that happened on Glenn Beck's show this morning. I don't know if you guys know who Peter Schweitzer is, but he's done a number of books. Thanks, SV.
right,
Peter
Sheila.
Schweitzer has done a number of books on fraud and money and politics, and he's talking about what we may see tonight in regards to the China aspect of the voting.
What do you think the president's going to say tonight?
I think he's going to focus on several aspects of foreign interference. I think China is going to be a central player in that. And I base that on, where the information chain has been going with regards to some of the documents that have been declassified. And I would say front and center in this, in terms of driving this, has been John Solomon, friend of mine, friend of yours, who has had a lot of documents declassified. And there are 2 sort of shocking things that he brought out as a journalist. He's now working temporarily as a so-called SGE, special government employee with the White House, to help in the declassification process. But 2 things, Glenn, that he has already exposed. Number one, the fact that we know that now in the 2020 election, China was hacking voter databases in multiple states, and that the CIA knew about this. And according to John's reporting, which is again based on documents, the CIA did not want to emphasize it or publicize it because they thought it would help Trump in that 2020 election.
Oh my God.
What really becomes frightening is when you merge that with the second big explosion he has. So you have China hacking into voter databases in multiple states. Then also in 2020, what did we have reported? The FBI got a tip that China was looking for ways to exploit the mail-in election balloting system. And one of the ways in which they were potentially going to do that was through fake IDs. And lo and behold, there was a lot of reporting, official government reports, Customs, Border Patrol, et cetera, that just at Chicago O'Hare alone, there were 1,500 shipments involving more than 20,000 counterfeit driver's licenses. So, Glenn, if you look at their ability to hack into voter databases and you look at what appears to be a systematic effort to generate large volumes of fake IDs, you merge those capabilities together, you have the potential for really affecting elections.
Well, I mean, let's see what the receipts are tonight. Something tells me they're going to be voluminous. Remember, President Trump will be speaking. Kash Patel, I believe, will be speaking. John Ratcliffe, who nobody ever hears of, the head spook, he'll be speaking. Not sure who else will be there, but I understand that the rest of the cabinet will be in the room as well. So this is a big, big speech he's going to be giving. Many people, I don't know if they're not going to watch it. I don't know if the networks are going to cover it, but I will. I'll be covering it. Let's see what indeed happens. Let me go ahead and do super chats right now. Is this button working here? Nope, that button's not working. Is that button working? Nope. Okay, so I know which button I have to use. I'm going to have to use the one I use with SV, but SV's picture.
Hey! Let's see. I can read them.
What happened with all my... I'm sorry to put you out there like that. Hold on. Let me just, so that's number, hold on. That's number 38. So if I go to number 38 here, I don't know why I don't have a camera in there. It's not working. Otherwise, I'm going to have to put SV. I think what happened was my camera went down, and when my camera went down, it didn't allow me to put everything where it's supposed to be. 1 second here. Here we go. I'll use that one. There, that works. Okay, so I don't have to leave SB hanging. All right, so here we go. John, Bear SV Mod Squad. Speaking for myself and probably everyone out there, your show is greatly appreciated and look forward to each and every day. The longer, the better. It's already been 3 hours. Hope you keep it up for years. Thank you very much. Thank you for the well wishing. Demon of Cybertron, I ain't seen you in a while. Thanks. How you doing, bud? I don't want the bike. I want the Nintendo or the PlayStation. I want the demise, the fall of those Democrats, commies, and the end of corruption, which we may see, because if people listen tonight and they believe it, then he can prove, or at least give some people some reason to go check. Yeah, we may be seeing the end of the Democrat Party very soon. Tim, how are you? I'm excited for tonight, whatever the news. I'm running the long race with Trump, start to finish. Absolutely persevere very well. Chiosop a couple times here. Capitulating to the left does not work soon. The strategy has to change to an eye for an eye. If they know there are consequences, they will think twice. When I lived in Greece, we had a terrorist group called 17 November. They turned out to be a lot of leftists. They were taken down when the right took office. Mentioning Greece, what's very interesting is I saw a study today that said at the time Castro took over Cuba, Cuba and Greece had basically similar economies in terms of GDP. And then since then, well, now we know where Cuba is. Chiosop, leftists joined forces with other violent groups like Islamists. Those guys are always around, aren't they? Anarchists, communists, cartels, pirates. Hey, we even talked about them, the cartels, pirates and thieves. Elimination has to be decisive. It's amazing, as you listed those groups, how many of them are here or working against us right now. When you think of Somalis, they're the pirates right there. G. Fisher, FBI, Blackhawks, U.S. Marshals, big takedown of Soros tonight. I hope that would be fantastic if we just found out some people actually gotten put in cuffs. Fazul, regardless of outcome, I'm all in, get them all, exactly. Weak Wimpy, do you believe Trump will show evidence of the infamous unfolded pristine mail-in ballots? I don't know. I'm not even going to guess at what's going to be shown tonight. I do know they are showing some things. Fazul, 47 speech, birthday present 68. I'm just getting started. Yes, absolutely. Chiosop again. Nicole Wallace smiled the other day during a segment. It was like Wednesday Adams smiling for the first time. I was terrified. Macon, I turned 69 on the 1st, enlisted in 73, so I'm familiar with most of these terrorist acts through the 70s and 80s. No one had the balls until Trump. Chiosop again, thank you. Being that they're international terrorists, they need to be rounded up and tried in a country that doesn't have jail time as a punishment. Oh, wait a second. Wait a second. You missed that part. If these are international terrorists and there's an organization that's a national security threat, maybe it's the military that is going to take control here. Think about that. Maybe we're going to bypass the rogue judges and look at Gitmo or something, which possibly could be what we're looking at. The Mar-a-Lago man, eyes peeled, folks. They're going to get very violent. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to urge people. Be careful. Barry Canova, what's to say? Sewer socialism is now an EPA threat. Monitor your septic systems or get used to the poop smell. Wow, I didn't even think about that. Chiosop, this fraud has gone to now well-funded terrorism. And the last person here is Virginia. Russian President Khrushchev said, communism will come from within in America. I don't need to take over America. Exactly. Our government is now being allowed to vote these people in. Absolutely insane. All right, everybody, thanks for hanging out. We will see you tonight, 8:30 p.m. Get ready for the big speech. Got some video already set to go, so I will see you tonight.